Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Monday morning. A good weekend for Real Salt Lake. They got the win Saturday night, 4-0, shutting out Atlante. Now, it looks like half of MLS has got 2 wins and 6 points now. I don't see how they're going to advance, but they played 4 games without winning. It was time to snap that winless streak, and they did. For more on the win, here's RSL head coach Pablo Mastroeni with the media.
KSL Sports. Pablo, winless in 4, so winless since before the World Cup break. How important is emotionally for the team just to get a W?
Yeah, no, I think that's what really drives momentum, you know. And like I've said, we've played really well in some of these games that we haven't gotten results in, and it's just about putting it all together. Goals change games. One of the things that we talked about is if we get on the board early, and we can build momentum here. And again, great individual play in the box with Luna and Serge to get us going on the right foot, and then really kicked it up in the second half. And so again, a really good performance today. You know, where last game the ball hit the post and maybe we didn't finish a couple opportunities that could have saw us through. Tonight we capitalized on it, but it doesn't change the way we talk about process and the way we go about our work, right? And I think, but to your point, results definitely create momentum, create belief, and validate the work that we do on the day-to-day.
That's just the 3rd shutout of the year. How meaningful is that?
It's huge, man. You know, I think in particular, you know, just give a shout out to the coaches that work extremely hard on set pieces, right? Tonight we scored 1 on a set piece and defended really well on our defensive set pieces, right? And I think it's a part of the game that's often undervalued as far as the amount of work and the amount of commitment that you put into it. But really coming back from the World Cup break, it's something that we focused on. The coaches made some great changes, and to reap those rewards is really important. Again, because as we get towards the second part of the season and even in this tournament, set pieces are a valuable way to score goals and change momentum. So credit to the coaches, credit to the players who showed up tonight.
As part of that shutout, Aris is in the middle, and we haven't seen much of him, his form, his health, whatever. What have you thought of him now through a couple games?
Yeah, you guys, he's been training with us, and oftentimes, and you see this with guys like Luka Moisa, Aiden, new players that haven't played a lot of games, is you don't know who they really are until they get thrown into the fire, And I thought tonight Aris was exceptional. I thought he was exceptional. And he's still a young player, a young center back, and obviously that position you get better with age, you get angles better, you get distances, how to use your hands to defend. But I thought tonight he was top, and again that's what these opportunities afford. Willing to play younger players, but you got to do the work. And tonight he did the work. He looked comfortable back there in possession, out of possession, set pieces. He had a really good performance.
Is it too early to say Pablo Ruiz is back?
Again, I think that last game for me it was kind of case in point. It's the one thing that's often that doesn't get mentioned a lot is it's difficult when your appearances are in the 70th minute and the game state is such to really show your quality. Having started that last game and built into the game was really important for him. And I thought he was really good on both sides of the ball. Obviously scored the goal that got us the draw. And tonight, just coming in now with the confidence that he had from last game, now coming into this game and finding his way. And, he's doing some great stuff. I don't want to jinx anything. I think he's moving in the right direction. You can see that he's playing with a different type of mentality with the ball, against the ball. His spacing, his defensive positioning is vastly improved, and those are all things that we've talked about over the last year. And so, credit to Pablo, who's put his head down, waited for his opportunity, and now taking his opportunity.
Boost pace on the right side has just been really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
if Pablo were playing to the left, the way he used to hit those big diagonal forwards, it seemed like those two, even though they're not next to each other, are born to play together.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, DJ. You want to jump on the staff? That's a great look. No, it's definitely, and one of the things we've been working with Booth is making sure that when the ball is on the weak side, his runs are to goal. His runs are to goal. We don't want the space behind the back line. We want, because he does have breakaway speed, and his greatest asset with the ball is his change of pace, and it surprises people because he's one of the quickest players on our team that you don't realize it until you're having to defend them, and so now what that opens up is because his pace to hit it down the line and get behind defenses is so good. Now he's got the opportunity on the goal that he scored, which is coming inside, and he's been working on finishing with his left foot, so he's been doing great.
Hey, Coach, congratulations on the win. Thanks. Matthew Casey, KSL Sports. You said yesterday it's sudden death for us. So if you could, please just tell us what your overall thoughts were on the game and what you thought of your team's response to that added pressure.
Yeah, again, I think my role as a coach is to make sure I take pressure off the guys, but then we have leaders like Hoffa in the locker room and Dre and these guys where before the game they're talking about, listen, we keep talking about being a top team. It's enough. Like we got to go out and do the business, And so I think it starts with that. Is if I go, guys, this is a sudden death game. We've got to go out. All of a sudden they get tight. They don't want to make mistakes. That's not for me. That's for them to lead themselves in those moments. For me, it's really to take pressure off and explain to them through video, like this is what you're doing against Tigres. We just got to do it. We just got to be better in that final phase. And tonight, I think that first goal with Luna creating his magic in the box and making plays. And again, at the end of the day, this game in that zone is about making plays. And last game, I felt we left a little bit on the table. But tonight, whether it's Luna, Morgan, Serge, Saba, even Lenny coming in, Pablo, you got to make plays to score goals, and the guys were fantastic tonight. And I think that this type of performance obviously lends itself to belief that we can go through to the next round and we will control what we can, but we need another performance like tonight.
Obviously, there was a lot of emotion and physicality that continued ramping up as the match went on. What did you make of the way your guys handled that without letting it affect the result? Yeah,
I think and I said to the guys after the game, I've been in these games against teams from Mexico, and they're really savvy in the way they test your emotional state. And I think it started with their coach early days, and I think you feed off that energy. So it was never going to be a game where our players are not going to be emotional. And one of the things that I always said as a player is like, my engine's revving at like 8,000 or 9,000 RPMs. It is going. And then something happens, and for me to act like a monk is impossible. But to understand that what I do in these moments can affect the team, and I think that's what the guys did a good job of. They met it. They didn't back down from it, but they also didn't let it affect their performance or the result. And I think that is really a big growth moment for our group in these type of games.
How long do you sit with and enjoy this result before the focus shifts to Juarez?
Yeah, it's so short, and that's why for me, it's just so important to be unemotional and just to look at the work. I think it feels good to win again, but again, I have no doubt that we're a good team, that we have a fantastic staff, that we're going to be all right, and I think the tough sometimes is navigating through the results. I have to answer questions that at times makes me feel like our performances aren't worthy of 3 points when they really are, right? And so for me, it's about being emotionally steady and making sure that we're really clear with our processes to be the team that we're capable of being. And again, we have fantastic leadership in that locker room. We have fantastic players. Like we talked about Arias, we talked about Zach Booth. These are guys that are stepping into positions that they're voids. And anytime they're voids, someone's going to fill it. How they do it, what type of opponent are they doing it with? And so it's just a lot of credit to who we are as a team to be able to have players step in and perform like these guys. And that really takes everyone at the club. It's not just the locker room. It's everyone at the club that believes in the processes we have. So, I'm gonna have a beer tonight or adult soda, and and then it's on to training tomorrow. And it's short-lived, Matty, I guess, short-lived.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Brian Goebel, Random Fan Podcast. How would you describe this game? Is it cathartic? First 4 games after the World Cup break, you found many different ways to not find a result. How would you describe this game tonight?
Yeah, again, I think, Brand, I think it's the most important thing, I think, from a coaching perspective, when you're not getting the results that at times you feel you deserve, it's about keeping the ship steady and not riding these emotional highs and not being exuberant after wins, but also being steady when you don't get the results, because the performances are there, And I think for the group tonight, obviously winning is why we do this. How you get there is really the secret sauce, right? As I've had many coaches in the past that were on cloud 9 when we won, and then when we lost, you didn't even recognize who the person was the next day in training. And when you have so many games in such quick succession like we have in the next month, it's really critical to lay down some objective data, to be emotionally stable as a staff, to help these guys through times that are very difficult, because everyone now with social media has an opinion, and oftentimes when you read it and it's not good, it starts to wane on your belief. But again, I think that this group is very unique, where our training sessions, even tomorrow, will be super competitive. And there won't be anyone resting on their laurels. They know that this is good, but to be better, you have to have a better performance than you had tonight. Like this performance, if we play the same game, it might not be good enough against Juarez. So we've got to double down, and the way we do that is Monday through Friday. So an important result to again, validate the work that we do. And now this is a standard, and this is what I said to the guys after the game, is you've just established a standard. And the great thing is we can celebrate it. The tough part is we got to raise the bar.
There's a lot of curiosity, maybe some skepticism, a lot of different ways to describe this tournament. How has it been beneficial? It looks like the clubs are really kind of growing into this tournament, and a lot of passion between.
No, it's a fantastic tournament. I really think it's a great tournament, and in particular, I think because the way these teams approach the game, not only from a tactical perspective, which is unique, every team has their own different style, and it's not like you've seen them play 17 games to this point. So it's really the scouts that we're doing are really quick, but we're really focusing on our own development and the way we want to play and how our setup can affect our opponents. Along with that, it gives the players an opportunity that maybe aren't getting a lot of playing time, Pablo Ruiz, for example, to showcase his goods, right? And so I think it's just basically how you frame it from a coaching staff to the players. If this is a bah humbug tournament, well, you're going to get some, so I think it's really the way we frame it, which is this is a tournament we want to get through the next phase. It's a good opportunity against some really, really good opponents. And so whilst we're talking about this from a team perspective, the individuals also get to measure themselves up against opponents in a different league that are top players and teams with a lot of history. Tigres is one of those, and I know Atalante is a kind of a new club in this setup, but also just beat Vancouver away from home, right? So really, really good team. So you put all that together, and it's just it's a fantastic opportunity for us to get looks at some players that we're going to need moving forward, who might not have had the opportunity, have this tournament not presented itself. So, and then it just, the sharpness, tactically, technically, how do we continue to improve as a group? And this is what this tournament affords.
There is RSL head coach Pablo Mastroeni with the media. When we come back, college football, we're going to Provo. We're going to go up on the hill. We're going to hear from coaches. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Time to go to practice at BYU. We'll go up to the U in a second. But first, we're going to start with BYU quarterback Tiger Bachmeier meeting with the media.
We are here with Tiger Bachmeier and half the team making noise behind us. This is your moment in the sun. They need to hold it down.
Yeah, no, it's great. We just finished practice about 20 seconds ago, and then we got the cold tubs. Everyone jumps in. We got Coach Phyllis yelling and putting it on a timer. But it's probably the most shocking thing after a long day of practice. You just got to jump in the ice and hold your breath while you're at it. So.
It'll wear you out. We talked to you a year ago, How different does it feel right now versus 1 year ago? How much more have you adapted to everything here, the program, the teammates, the coordinator, the philosophy, everything?
Yeah, I guess the best way that I could put this is having a place to be on Sunday nights. And the way I put it like that is because when we first got here, you're a new person and you're still getting to know the guys. And now a year later, it's like any given Sunday, you'll find us at a teammate's house, at the Clark's house, having steak and potatoes, and that's kind of the same type of thing for the offense. You feel comfortable with the offense for Bear and myself, being able to be at a different point in the offense, and that's what a year does to it.
So with that more comes naturally. What can that mean in terms of production?
In terms of production and it's the offense, we're going to be great. We got weapons and we got a good guy back there. It's hard for me to say that sometimes, but he's got to keep a good head on his shoulders. But giving more and feeding him a little bit more on his plate and let him make a little bit more decisions. And then getting the world to show. I think I've said this last year, probably on the interview, but letting the world see a little bit more of Bear, the Bear that I know. So.
Well, let's dive into that a little deeper because you are his biggest critic and you are his biggest fan at the same time. I remember that from last year. Like in 10 seconds, you can flip the switch and go from biggest critic to biggest fan and right back and forth. How have you seen him evolve, and what do you think? He still is going into his sophomore year here. What is the next thing for him? What do you feel like he's on the verge of doing that you can see because you know him better and maybe we don't see it coming?
Yeah. No, it's a good thing that last year he came in and he was put on this pedestal of leadership, and he started to take on that role right away. And now going into this year, the biggest thing that's different is people are expecting so much from him, and so it's good for him to see that perspective of being a leader too. Most leaders, when they step into a position, people are expecting or they're criticizing everything he does, and that's going to be his whole life for the next part of his career. People are going to be criticizing or people are going to be praising him for all this stuff. So just him taking full ownership of that and taking care of the team, taking care of every decision and owning it like it's no other.
How much didn't he show last year that he is actually capable of showing? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So Bear and I played high school together. My junior year, actually Brandon Rose was the quarterback, and he was at Utah 2 years ago. He actually played against BYU. And so he was the quarterback my junior year. So Bear didn't actually play with me my junior year, but he went in for when we were up beating teams. And Bear's very, very first play, his very, very first play of high school football, he hurdled someone. His very first play. So it was off to a start, and he's just a highlight reel in the making. And so there's a lot of highlight plays that are going to happen this year from him.
This time of year, there are always questions, but whether we're getting quizzed by people or we're just chatting up BYU fans, it always comes back to the wide receiver group. There were so many guys a year ago who were proven and really established, and realistically, you're just not taking Chase off the field. It's not going to happen. Now, there's opportunity because those guys aren't there. I think it makes people nervous because there's nobody they can look at and say, oh yeah, I know this guy, I know that guy, and I know they're going to do it for sure. How is that all playing out in the room as you all try to, there's a lot more air in the room than there was a year ago.
Yeah, it makes people nervous to see us having an offense that's been electric for the past 20 years. So you tell me, look at the data and tell me in September if we're worried about the receiver room. So we're going to be great.
Okay, who's a better musician?
I'm a little bit more classically trained. Bear's probably, I would give him as a performer, probably a little bit more out there, but I think I'm a better musician.
That QB charisma, huh?
Yeah, he's just got a little bit, maybe like 1% more charisma than me.
So I've listened to the stuff. In fact, I've bought a couple of tunes on iTunes of yours, and you're kind of all over the place. If you had to narrow it down, what's your go-to?
As listening to music? Mm-hmm. Oh, I love old blues music, old gospel music, and then a lot of R&B and new country that's coming out.
New country. See, I told you.
There you go. There you go. All right.
And that's what we played. That's what we played a lot. That's what we played a lot of. So.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
I call some Jimmy Buffett.
That was a fun song to play.
Tiger, thanks for a few minutes. We appreciate it. Good luck this year.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And keep at it. Let's go. Get excited, Cougs. I'm super excited for the season. It's close but far. Thank you.
There's BYU quarterback Tiger Bachmeier. Now here's the offensive coordinator, Aaron Roderick.
Look at the relaxed body language. You've done this drill before. You've got this down. What is new to learn, Aaron? You've been around the block a few times now.
Yeah, can't believe how many years I've been doing this. Like, it's I think this is year 26 now. I was at Utah for 12 years, and I think this is year 9 here. So I love it. It's the first day out here, back on the grass with the players. It's really fun.
As we look at this team, we expect big things from Bachmeier, and I can remember you came on our show, and it was after Retzlaff's first season, and going into that offseason. Now we know what happened, but that's not the point of the question, is that you listed some stats that you were expecting from him, and they were considerably higher than like completion percentage than what he was his first year, and he didn't get an opportunity. But now we got Bachmeier, who's going to have that opportunity. Are you expecting the same type of level of production that you anticipated from Retzlaff if he had played that second year with Bachmeier now in his second year?
Yeah, I think Bear's definitely capable of it. We don't talk a lot about stats here. Some stats are winning stats that are worth talking about. We don't talk about yards and let's lead the league in this or that. But we want to be 3-to-1 touchdowns to interceptions. Last year we were just over 2-to-1. I'd like him to be 3-to-1 this year, and I'd like to be around 70% completions. If we can hover in that 70% completion range, then there's going to and take better care of the football, there's going to be more explosive plays. And so that's part of the goal. Our big years on offense were, Zach 30-something touchdowns, Jaron 30-something touchdowns, 70% completion range. Those have been our great years on offense. And again, it's not like something we talk about every day, like, hey, we got to hit these marks. But we're trying to gear the offense in a direction where Bear can have that type of success.
I had a professor at UC Santa Barbara who said once, there's liars, there's damn liars, and there's statistics. The point of that is statistics are even worse than these two forms of liars. So I'm curious to dig a little deeper on that stat. 3-to-1 ratio, but when a quarterback runs the ball as well as he does, do you add in the rushing touchdowns? Because maybe he doesn't throw it in from the 7-yard line because he runs it in from the 7-yard line. And how do you factor that in? Because fans are going to listen to this, and they're going to be holding you accountable for those numbers in October.
Yeah, well, like I said, we're not harping on the numbers, okay? Those are goals. Those are winning numbers that are out there that are achievable. They're not easy, and he's a sophomore, so I'm not saying this has to happen right now. Those are things we're working towards in his career. I think he is capable of that, though. And you're right, Bear's an elite runner. I mean, he's as good of a running quarterback as I've ever seen in college football, and so that does factor into our, the equation. Sometimes when we're in the red zone, the space gets condensed in the passing game, and the quarterback run game is the thing that sort of balances it out. You equate numbers with the QB run, and so he's a threat, and we're going to run him less this year, but he's still a weapon in that area.
When you say you're going to run him less, why?
Well, just want to keep him healthy. At the end of last season, he was pretty banged up, and in the championship game and then in the bowl game, he played really well in the bowl game. But that bowl game was kind of more like the formula we want to play with this year, where we ran him a little less, threw it a little more, and we didn't have LJ in that game. So if we can kind of have that type of formula, but we're still handing the ball 20 times to LJ, I think that's going to be a formula for success.
I love how coaches, as they really settle into a place and a philosophy, they get real detail-oriented, and the details can matter a lot. One thing about Bear running, a lot of times quarterbacks do well outside the hash marks, maybe out by the numbers because there's space and there's speed, and they can run away from the big guys and they don't get hit. But you ran him a lot between the tackles. He was north-south guy. Right. He didn't try to get out. What's the logic behind that? Does it change over time?
Yeah, he's a north and south runner. He's not a beat you with speed around the edge type of guy. He does run well. He has good speed, but he's a very north and south runner. and he's 240 pounds. Last year I think he was close to 250 by the end of last season. We've got him leaned up.
So was DJ.
He's a little leaner this year, and
Me too.
he has unbelievable strength numbers in the weight room. I mean, he's as strong as they get, and so he's a good north and south runner. And even when he, a lot of his quarterback scrambles are step up, there's a crease, and go north. He hits it, and so he's very, very good at that. We just want to do it a little less. Just a few less hits. Let's get through this conference play healthy and strong. That's the goal.
So that's not just a you play calling thing. We've had Riley Jensen on, and just a little bit of coaching he did. He's like, you got to break down the QB run game, what's designed, what's called, and what's just ad lib because of the way a pocket breaks down. So, 5 per game of one, 7 of the other. How do you?
That's a good point. Yes. So it's partly play calling. It's partly our game planning. If you're putting a QB run in every situation of the game plan, then he's going to end up with a lot of carries. So there's certain situations in the game plan where we have to resist. Like, okay, it'd be easy to put a QB run here, but let's get another touch for LJ, or let's get a ball to one of our receivers on a jet sweep or something. And then you got to pick your spots where those QB runs are going to be in your game plan, and then when you get to the game, you got to just make sure you're not overusing them. And then the other part of it is just him being a good decision maker about, in the passing game, when to run, when it's worthwhile to take a hit, when it's better to just throw the ball away and play the next play. We're working our way through those things too.
How much do you need more time to establish a depth chart there?
At quarterback?
Yeah.
If we played today, Trayson Bourget would be number 2. He's doing a really good job. He knows our offense well. I have a lot of confidence in him. And then Enoch Watson, though, is right on his heels. That guy is talented. He's got really, really a high ceiling, and he is learning the offense and handling it really well. Like, he's done a great job. So a lot of confidence in him too. If we played today, it'd probably be Trayson, but we're still working our way through that.
Speaking of keeping people fresh, who can you give the ball to at running back other than LJ so he's not getting hit as often?
So Sione Moa is finally fully healthy. Now, he's had some bad luck in his career up to this point, but when he has been healthy, he's been a really good player. I mean, he's one of the best players on this team. And then I'm super excited about Devon Eka and the improvement that Preston Rex has made in the offseason. We moved Preston to running back last year, mid-season. He was a safety, trying to learn to play running back, and it was asking a lot. He did some good things in the passing game in the open field because he's really fast. But this offseason, he's actually learned to play the position, and I think he's going to do some good things for us this year too. So right now it'd be those 4 guys I see a lot of good things out of, and then there's some other younger guys that are trying to work their way up too.
Any emphasis more on camp to find a primary receiver or receivers? Because obviously you lost a lot from that position.
Yeah, I mean, every day we're giving those guys chances. We're going to put some big guys on the field, though. We put Kyler Casper and JoJo out there on the field together at 6'5" and 6'6", and both are good players. JoJo is, that injury he had last year was really serious. We don't talk a lot about the details of that stuff, but it was a tough injury, and one that even when he came back, it just, every single ball you catch or every time you hit the ground or anything, there's a lot to it, and he's had a great offseason. I think JoJo's time is now, and then Kyler Casper has done great things since he's been here, and then Reggie Frischneck's doing a great job. Tiger Bachmeier's really improved. I have confidence in him. I'm probably going to forget somebody, and Legend Glasker, freshman, he will play this year. He's good. So those are our guys right now. I'm probably forgetting someone, but I believe in those guys. They'll step up. And we're better at tight end than we've been too, so that's the other part, is the tight ends can help supplement that.
You say better. Carson Ryan was really good, so you're just talking depth-wise?
Yeah, depth-wise. I mean, I think these 2 guys are, I don't want to compare them to Carson. Carson did such a great job for us, but they're in that realm of what Carson did for us, and we have more depth there than we've ever had since I've been here.
You talked at the top about, your quarter-century coaching. So along the way, you've worked with a lot of people. You had a year with Norm Chow when you were up at the U. And when Norm was here, There were similar questions about a wide receiver group one year, and you know how Norm gets sometimes, right? He just kind of gets because he goes, guys, we've been running this offense for a long time. The receiver who can run the pattern, make the break at 8 yards, not at 6, not at 9, but at 8, cut, and catch the ball if it's thrown to him. He can play, and he'll move the chains, and we'll get in the end zone, and we'll win games. Just do what you're supposed to do. The scheme will work for you. It's awesome to have all these physical attributes and to be able to win the 50-50 balls, but are you at a point where it's, guys, if you run the pattern, the scheme's going to work for you?
Yeah, there's definitely an element of just being reliable that makes the offense go. You know, it's you know, the most, you know, you want to invest in your most talented players for sure, and your most talented players should be your best players, but sometimes there's certain parts of the game or certain situations where you just need somebody that's reliable that can go get the job done. And you know, Tiger Bachmeier is one of those guys. Like, he did some things for us last year that probably nobody noticed, but he was in the right place at the right time and makes a block that springs LJ on a run, or he sits down in his zone coverage where he's supposed to be, catches a ball, moves the chains on third down. You know, some of those things that don't take a ton of talent, that just take someone who's tough and smart and reliable. There's always a place for guys like that to play here, and that's been the deal here for a long time, right? There's a long time where BYU offense has just been about being reliable and executing, and that's still true.
All right, well, congrats on another year. Stay one step ahead of the posse. That's the rule in the coaching profession. You're doing a good job of that.
Yeah, 1 year at a time.
All right.
As soon as you think you know that you're this game will humble you fast.
Yeah,
I've learned that the hard way over the years. I also I've learned to enjoy the wins more, you know. But this game will humble you, and we have to stay humble and be ready to go every week.
Hey, Rod, thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Here's BYU offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick. When we come back, we're going to go up on the hill and hear from the Utes. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in. It is time right now to go up on the hill and hear from the Utes. Sharrieff Shah meeting with the media. Here's the Utes' longtime assistant coach.
Sharrieff, obviously you're going to get a lot of questions about corners, but I want to ask you specifically about special teams.
Sure.
You are the coordinator of that group. How have you seen maybe Dylan Curtis, Orion Phillips, and the rest of the special teams unit come along from the end of spring to now?
What's been fun is to watch somebody like Logan Castor. Logan is our long snapper, short snapper. He does all of our snapping. Logan's been in the program for years now. And when you think about Utah football, Logan is who I think about. Somebody that just works, doesn't complain, never asks for anything. Oh, I absolutely love him. And I love that he said, Coach, if I just focus on one thing and becoming the very best snapper for you, you think I can probably find a way on the field? Like, maybe. Not only did he find his way on the field, he found his way to becoming an all-conference long snapper. So I'm extremely happy about him. It's now about who's behind him. And that's what we've had to kind of go out and find, or like we always do in the Utah way, is anybody on the team ever long snap? No. You got 42 hands to go up and you're like, okay, let's all meet after practice and let's see if we can figure out who's going to be somewhat decent. Well, then out of that, those bevy of kids, you get, a couple that are actually pretty good. You're like, hey, Logan was one of those guys. He said, I think I can long snap. I'm 6'5", 231, and maybe I can run a little bit. And I have massive 12-inch hands. The ball looks like a tennis ball when it's going back there. So, some people have God-given physical attributes that make it easier for them. He's one of them. And there's a kid behind him named Mitch Nielsen who's showing up. Another kid, Gage Victor, who we got from Snow College, who's also doing a fantastic job. Super pleased with what I think can be a very good long snapping group. Orion Phillips, when we first got him, he looked like my baby from Joe Dirt or something. He just looked crazy. And I tell him that all the time. I said, you were 162 pounds. He's 193 now. And I watched him punt. I'm like, you might have a chance to do something special. He is so good, just in terms of attitude, demeanor, Coach, you think maybe we can try this or that? And it used to be, Coach, this is crazy. It's a little bit chaotic. Everybody's coming at me. I'm like, yeah, mate, because he's from Australia. I'm like, that's what we do here in America. People's going to blitz you. So get used to getting the ball off faster. I like to go on and get my steps right. And I was like, look, punt the ball. Let's get this thing going. Well, he got good, and he got really good. And I think he's poised to be a lot better. Dylan Curtis is who I'm most excited to watch. You know, he had a tough freshman debut, showed the capability of which we all thought he had. You know, an outstanding elite leg. He still has it. You know, coming off of an injury that now I feel like he's probably just about 100% watching him kick in practice. I'm like, oh man, we might be pretty good. And at least if we're not as good as I think we'll be consistent. We'll be good enough to, I think when Coach Scally looks and says, you know, should we put our field goal unit on? I'm like, Coach, go right now. And we all feel good about it, and the kids feel good about it. So that's what you love to see coming out of spring. That's what was been happy. I love Tanner Craig, and a young man that we got who was with us, went to Utah State, then think to UTEP, and now is back. Love him. He's a kicker and a potential punter for us. So long snappers, punters, kickers, well, at least we're in a good spot where we can continue to grow some kids and get people better and get ready for this season.
Coach Shah, you've obviously had a very close relationship with Morgan Scally, as you did with Kyle Whittingham. I want to ask you just about the decision to stay with Morgan and stay at this program instead of going to Michigan or even other places. What was that process like for you, and was it an easy decision to make, just given your relationship with Morgan?
Coach Whitt, I would not be coaching had it not been for Coach Whitt. I wouldn't be here. So I will always love Coach Whitt. Always, forever, has a very special place in my heart. So when he initially left, it was something that I had to consider. You know, I knew where I wanted to be. I know I wanted to be with Coach Scally, but Coach has a way of being very persuasive, Coach Whitt. You know, he can be very persuasive, and when I talk to my wife and just going through the things that I still wanted to be able to achieve here, it made sense. It was what was in my heart to be with Coach Scally. You know, we had a lot of plans that we sat in the corner, that defensive room for years, just, well, if I were this and if I could do that, you know, wishing, and now some of these things are starting to come to fruition. No, you don't want to go anywhere. You want to see if you can make those dreams a reality. So, man, I absolutely love what I believe Coach Whitt is going to build, but my home was here. It was with the guy that, I was able to cut my teeth with. And on the defensive side of the ball, it's with the thought and expectation that we want to win in a big way. We want to do what Indiana showed everybody that you can do. If you can assemble the right young men, have the right culture, the right mindset, you can do that. That's not a one-off. I think that's going to become more apparent and more commonplace than people think, especially with what's happening in college football, what's been happening, transfers, more good players and on virtually damn near every team. So I wanted to be here.
Let's start from Josh.
You have a lot of competition in your room. I know you're never satisfied with where.
Never.
But where are they right now? Do you feel comfortable that you have guys that can get out there? And I think in spring you were saying they were a little too physical. Are you at a point now where you feel comfortable with at least where you're at?
I'm at a point right now where I can look in my room and say, these 5 or 6 guys should be able to really help us. I didn't know that in the spring. In the spring, I'm like, I think he might be able to do it. I'm not sure about this kid. But now, having gone through summer, just a few days in the fall camp, and Coach Scally is so good. He wants an assessment on everybody, like, what about this room? And we do that as a coaching staff like everybody else in the country. But I look at the room and say, yeah, I'm getting comfortable with believing that these 4, 5, 6 kids can really do it. I guess the level of impatience with me is invariably injury happens. So I'm looking at the other kids in the room like, you should be able to come along faster, which makes me incredibly impatient. I'm always yelling at somebody for something. They're like, well, I didn't even get a rep. Well, you've been watching for the last 3 days. Why don't you know it? Yeah, it's kind of wrong, but it is what it is. But you want the accelerated development right now because we play, the kids are like, oh, Coach, we don't play until September. I'm like, we play in 5 minutes. That's what it feels like to me. But I've grown a lot more comfortable watching the kids in the summer and then again in these last few days to say, man, Scooby should be able to have several guys be with him. Scooby because he has the most experience. But then it's Eli Reed who showed his physicality and length. James Chenault, we call Bobo, incredibly savvy. J.C. Hart, who's been with us, now is comfortable in the defense and starting to make some plays. Earl Parker, young man we got out of JUCO. Brandon Holmes, another young man who would probably be vying for a nickel spot. The person I'm probably most excited for is Jeremiah Caldwell, who we call Rock. Rock played safety, played outside corner, played nickel. His versatility and command of the room just gives us such, I think, a benefit. Especially it helps to be 6'2.5" to, and playing nickel as well as corner. And then the young kids who I'm impatiently patient with, your Dylan Waters, Major Henshin, the kids that just got to us in spring who I'd love to continue to take a big step forward. It's, and the person I hope continues to show me improvement like he has the last 2 days is Nick Brown. He came from Lamar. And I've asked him to play nickel, and it's just a lot to do, and it's a lot to digest in that spot, but he's doing a great job. So I can at least confidently say, man, I have a good room. I feel like I have good pieces to assemble to make us really, really competitive, if not absolutely elite, I believe. But we have a lot of camp left, a lot of camp left.
All right, there is Sharrieff Shah. Now here's the offensive coordinator, Kevin McGiven.
Morgan has talked about how you fit your offense to the personnel. As you kind of surveyed this team, what do you feel like the strength of this team is and where you want to design your offense around?
I think always first and foremost, I look at the skill set of the quarterbacks. And so designing things that we feel like Devin can handle, that he can do well. Obviously integrating Bird into that, and what that package looks like for him, and what the volume looks like for him. And so I'm always going to look at those two components first. With the skill guys, a lot of different pieces there. So I think we can kind of mix and match some things, but utilizing two backs and what their different skill sets are, especially with Wayshawn and Daniel Bray, they both bring some different elements and different skill sets where you can utilize them in different ways than just ball carriers. And then trying to look at the versatility of the wide receivers as well. There's, sometimes those guys are just wideouts, but there's guys that that you can put into a little bit different roles sometimes as well with the wideout groups, and still trying to formulate that to its fullest extent, but starting to get a better understanding now.
Coach, Dev shared on Monday that he'll have the ability to kind of change things at the line of scrimmage, pretty simple stuff. But what has he done to earn your trust in doing that, and how do you kind of help develop that in him to make sure he's making the right decisions?
Yeah, just kind of always a slow process with that, just making sure that he has command of the offense, and so as you go throughout spring, you just kind of integrate little things here and there. He's already exhibited, even in the two practices we've had up to this point, much better command of what's going on, and so. He did some things in practice yesterday with some protection checks that were not anything that he did in the spring, and so he directed some things to handle some pressures in defense, and so we're giving him the keys to the car in that element. There's some different things on the perimeter with looks that he sees where he can get himself into the best situation based on the look that he's getting with route concepts and things like that. And so as we go and as he exhibits that command, we kind of put more on his plate in terms of taking control.
Last year, Devin said last year was probably the most banged up he's ever been in his career. I mean, had a multitude of injuries, but now he's fully back healthy. This is kind of a two-part question, so if you need me to rephrase it.
No, it's good.
First, just how has his mentality kind of evolved over through the spring, coming off multiple injuries? And two, knowing how banged up he got last year, have you kind of catered the offense to kind of put him out of harm's way, given, you have a plethora of receivers to go to now? How has that changed at all, if anything?
Yeah, I think my mindset-wise, I haven't really seen much of a shift from spring to now, other than he just looks and he's moving, like he's healthy, but he's attacked all the practices. There hasn't been anything where he's really tried to hold back, or that you could see that he was still pushing through after the surgery in the off season and things like that. We tried to manage that in the spring as much as possible, and that, now being full go, you can definitely see the comfort level just in when he gets out and he's on the perimeter and he opens up, then it looks like a little bit different Dev than it did in the spring. What was the second part? Sorry.
Just given how banged up he was last year, and now that the offense has so many weapons on the perimeter, does that change maybe run heavy versus maybe pass heavy?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say the run pass ratio. That can always change from week to week based on how you're trying to attack an opponent. But I think given the fact that we have weapons out there that we want to feature, then that could shift a little bit of the focus. I think what we tried to focus on in just with his development, knowing what he can do, has pushed him into that realm a little bit more, and then always sensitive to the to how many hits the quarterback is going to take, whether it's how we're constructing our protection or what we're doing with him in the run game, and then also knowing how much he just creates on his own. And so, that's something we're going to have to manage. We're going to want to utilize his feet. We're going to want to create numbers in the run game, the advantage that you can have when you involve some quarterback run game. I don't think we want to take that element of the offense away, but in terms of the hits and the types of hits that he's taking, definitely want to manage that.
Over the summer, Devin took the wide receivers down to Arizona with him to train. What have you seen from him as his growth in terms of the leadership, but also just what does that do with the connection with him and the receivers and what you're trying to build? And is that something that is common for a quarterback to take it to that level in the offseason?
They're always going to. I think guys are always going to put in work in the off season, going to the extent where you take them down to Arizona and do something like that. Maybe not to that extent, but he is. I think by Coach Scally, myself, with Coach Gunderson, we've tried to push him into that leadership role, and guys are reacting to him, because of the type of player he is, and so he has influence that way. But just using his voice, a little bit more influence, and then creating that connection, creating that chemistry. The chemistry is something that we're trying to build on a day-to-day basis with the team and the offense in its entirety. But he's been more vocal, and you can tell that there has been a connection that is starting to be established, or getting established with the work that they put in the off season, and that manifests itself in practice the last couple of days. Also, there were, like I said before, he has the ability to change some things. And I want them to take ownership of the offense. I want them to kind of put their flavor on it. But he gave the receivers a check that we never talked about. So that was talked about sometime in their off-season training when they were together. And he saw something, and the receivers reacted to the check, and he threw a big play off of it, because of what he saw in attacking the coverage. And so, I just kind of looked over at Gundy and said, I don't know what you're teaching these guys, but that was kind of cool.
From the end of spring to now, where would you say the offense has made the biggest jump?
I just think I think from a cultural standpoint, there's a way we want it to look. There's an effort that they're giving on a down by down basis. That is something that has been established with the defense, prior to this year with Coach Scally, that he wanted to carry over and make it a team mentality in terms of the culture. And so we were really trying to push that. That was really coach driven in the spring, just getting that to show up on a play-by-play basis in terms of the consistency that we want. And so that is showing up way faster than it did in the spring, and so that culture piece of it is carried over. And then, in the first 2 days, two installs, and the first install kind of vanilla, and then we went from 0 to 100 in the second install with all the things that we're doing. But in the spring, that came as kind of a shock to him. Didn't handle it real well. There was, just the level of focus it took to execute that install. Yesterday, it was like clockwork. I mean, the way that they ripped through that thing, and there's always a lot of details, but how clean it looked from an operational standpoint was pretty impressive, the way they carried that over.
How do you feel like Bird's development, particularly as a passer, has been going so far this year?
Yeah, really well. We've pushed both him and Dev kind of the same way. In terms of becoming elite decision makers and having elite processing skills and being able to apply concepts to coverage, defensive looks, things like that. And so I would say Bird has made incremental progress, and again, early on in fall camp, that development through the spring is already showing up. And, and I think where, some of the tight windows that you would say, quarterbacks are being a little bit risky, but as long as it's calculated risk, there's been some ball placement in the first couple of practices where you can tell he's much more comfortable ripping that in there because he knows what he's seeing and it's not so reactive.
There's Utah football offensive coordinator Kevin McGiven. We're going to take a break. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
News update. This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NFL.
Well, we've got a slew of NFL games this week starting on Thursday as the preseason really gets underway. I know we had the Hall of Fame game, but now we got more than that. And Kyle Shanahan says he's planning to coach that preseason opener, which is Thursday, against the Tennessee Titans. Now the 49ers coach has been recovering from a severe concussion, among other things, stemming from a car accident. So we shall see about that. It's good news if he can be out on the sideline, I guess, in the preseason. We'll go from there. Lions, this is an interesting story. Teddy Bridgewater was going to be their backup, but he opted to retire again. Now, he was Jared Goff's backup last season. He originally retired in 2023, was doing some high school stuff, and then returned. I assume he's going to go back into the high schools. I'm not sure what's going on there. We'll have to see. If he wants to return to high school coaching, Washington Commanders left tackle Laramie Tunsil, some torn triceps in practice. Oh my gosh. That's just hearing about that. Significant chunk of the regular season. Now, they had a bunch of injury issues last year, Washington did. We'll see if they can recover from that. Usually it's about half the season, maybe even longer. So we'll see about that. And this is a sad story. Former Niners running back Roger Craig, diagnosed with vascular dementia. Now, he made the Hall of Fame over the weekend, made that announcement in his enshrinement. Doctors believe his condition came apart from concussions sustained during an 11-year career as a running back. Downer news, but it seems like, man, that is just one after another. That sport obviously being very, very violent. Okay, let's move on.
Hashtag college football.
The Protect College Sports Act failed to reach a vote during an all-night pre-recess session in the Senate that ended early Saturday morning. The bill did gain a spot on next month's calendar after the chamber comes back from its summer break. More bill revisions could come in the next month, so going to have a few weeks here with no news on this, and then we'll see what happens in September. There were a bunch of predictions that it wasn't going to pass. If it didn't pass in August, we'll see if those predictions, or if it didn't pass before the August recess, we'll see if those
I was on my
predictions
phone
come true.
all night just waiting to see if that thing would get going, get through. Finally, at like 2:30, I went to bed. Man, and we'll be back at it next month.
I think you were on your phone, but it was probably another college sports story. We got a question up on our Facebook page about All the noise to the point that BYU felt BYU.
Yeah, but that was Saturday.
Yeah.
This was Friday.
You weren't still working it?
On this
Before
one?
and after, knowing?
It's just refresh. I'm in love, and I always will be.
We got a guest coming up next. Is there anything you want to say now about the BYU story? I mean, we'll get to it in the 8 o'clock hour for sure, but
No.
for the early risers.
No, you early risers, go back to bed when it comes to this story. It's a snoozer. No, I just thought it was interesting that an athletic administrator went on a message board thing. You normally don't see that. I think that was the rumors fly all over the place all the time. But someone thought it was serious enough to go on some form of a public forum, as I understand it. I didn't see the announcement, but some form
Cougar Board
to be able to refute that. You don't see something like that. Or maybe they put out a statement. They don't go on a chat line or whatever they call them, message boards, I guess. So as far as that goes, I thought that was unusual. Maybe it's not. Maybe they do it all the time. Every school's got probably 2 or 3, right?
Yes, I think they do it. I don't think they usually do it for stories of this stature.
They don't do it for stories of this stature?
Exactly.
What do they do?
More likely to be a press release through traditional media outlets.
Right, that's
or
what I'm
call
talking
somebody
about.
or leak it. Right. I mean, they'll take stuff to social media, but not stuff that has this kind of weight. You know, about an athletic
They don't
director's
address a
employment
rumor.
status. And you're right about that, too, yeah.
That's what
rumor.
caught my eye, is that you address a rumor. But they felt the need. I'm not criticizing it. I don't care. But it just is unusual to me, I think. I mean, I'm not perusing every school's message boards.
To see what rumors are addressing. But you're right. I would think it'd be rare.
I know I've been on there. My friend's brother frequents it, and my friend's brother doesn't like me because he's a BYU guy, and he sees that stuff, and they blast me on there, and he thinks I'm a real bad dude.
Hilarious.
It's a true story.
I know. You should take him down to a BYU football media session. Watch people come over to say hi to you.
Well, he lives in St. George.
He'd be stunned.
I think he cooled a little bit when I got him passes, parking, hospitality passes to the PGA tournament in St. George. That might have cooled just a little.
You bought him off.
Well, I gave it to my friend.
Yeah.
And so
but then his friend took his brother.
Yeah. Right. I didn't give him to him. But yeah, they believe that stuff. And that was there many years ago when they changed coaches and brought in Bronco, that was running wild, that I was suspended while my father was potentially dying, and I was bedside when he had a heart attack, to one in which Tom Homo was in regular contact with me as I was at my bedside, the bedside of my father. Now, fortunately, he did live another 10 years.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag NBA.
Don Nelson, second winningest coach in NBA history, passing away at the age of 86. His family made the announcement over the weekend. He won 5 NBA titles as a player with the Celtics, Hall of Fame inductee, had a long and illustrious coaching career after he was done playing. There's a million stories about Don Nelson, PK.
I heard a lot of them because Majerus was tight with him with that Milwaukee connection, where Majerus grew up in that area, in that state, obviously, and he used to refer to him a lot.
Yeah. Nelson coached the Bucks.
Yeah.
Late 70s, most of the 80s.
Yeah. And he was an innovator, obviously. He was an innovator. He was a character. He maintained his character in retirement, talking about how he was just blowing weed in Maui all the time. I mean, I like the Maui thing. I don't know about the smoking pot, but his card games, I think Sports Illustrated did a big, when it was a legitimate publication, did a big story on it with those guys going out there, Willie Nelson and a bunch of famous actors doing that thing. Was a pretty good player. And then just to read all the tributes from former players, from NBA people, there was just about as many as you would want to read. And so he was a name in basketball for many, many years. Very, very accommodating to the media in terms of my interactions. I don't know if that was widespread. His son, Donnie, same thing, very accommodating. Had an opportunity at the Delta Center one year to sit down with him, and when the foreigner guys were starting to come in, and Nowitzki had already made his mark, and Donnie, who was noted for foreign guys being able to study them and all that stuff, was talking about how we're going to see, he was projecting what we're going to see in the next 15 years or so, and he was right, talking about how they were going to be so influential and consequential in the league, and they were at the forefront of that, he and his father, Don.
Tributes from Dirk Nowitzki and Steph Curry, both those guys saying, hey, absolutely pivotal that you drafted me and that you gave me opportunity, mentored early on, got me on the right path and all that. Nowitzki with the old school stories about getting stashed away. So nobody would see him, find him, talk to him, keep him low profile.
Which doesn't exist anymore. That's what his son Donnie was talking about. I remember it vividly. It was just one winter morning at a shoot-around, and he had nowhere to go. Instead of go sit in a hotel for 3 or 4 hours. So he really enjoyed telling me, and I was just lapping it up, man, like a dog in a water bowl. I mean, just have that access to him and listen to him talk about all that stuff. So those guys, the two of them, because Donnie worked for his dad there for a good long while in Dallas, so they really knew what they were talking about. Yeah, he was a personality for many, many years, in addition to be a good basketball coach and obviously a nice player.
Ben Simmons, now 30 years old, is expected to be a full participant with zero restrictions at a player-led private mini-camp for the Australian men's basketball team beginning today in Melbourne. He's eyeing an NBA return. He did not play this past season, seeking to recover fully from back and other injuries. He's long been labeled a bust, PK. It'd be crazy if you were able to write a chapter now in his 30s. I guess wilder things have happened, but it'd be pretty unexpected.
I would think it would be as a role player.
Yeah. Memphis Grizzlies forward Brandon Clark died from the effects of heroin and cocaine. The L.A. County Medical Office Examiner's Office announced over the weekend he was found dead on May 11th.
That's a really sad story, obviously. 29 years old. Born in Canada, but at the age of 3, moved to the Phoenix area. Went to Desert Vista High School, same high school as, if you remember, baseball player Jacob Bregman for BYU, and then J.J. Dielman, offensive lineman for the University of Utah. Over there in the East Valley. But yeah, 29, and that's I don't know what more I can say beyond sad.
Tragic.
And did you see this? The big story over the weekend was Sophie Cunningham getting bludgeoned, and then DeJounte, is that how you say it?
White.
Carrington?
White privilege.
Yeah, white
and
privilege.
Sophie going back on that. Back and forth.
But Carrington is the younger sister of Darren Carrington, who played receiver for Utah. And their dad, I think he's a pastor in the San Diego area, played in the NFL and went to NAU. He's a lumberjack.
Look at all those ties.
Yeah. Well, it's cool anytime a kid from NAU gets to play in the whatever professional, in this case the NFL. And Darren Carrington was a nice story because he had the, I think it was a DUI at Oregon. And came to Utah and was humbled by that opportunity. Talked to him many times and had a nice little run for the Utes. But that's his younger sister, for those who didn't know, because it was a big story over the weekend, obviously, as the WNBA continues to amaze for all sorts of reasons.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
And a swing and a high drive deep right field. The floodgates are open. That is way up into the second deck. Kyle Schwarber with his second home run of the day. His 35th on the season. And it's 4-2 Phillies.
Fly ball to left center. Duran going back near the track. Looks up. It's going to be off the wall. In to score is Walton. The throw to second base, not in time. It's a double for Muncie. The A's have a 4-3 lead, and they're going crazy in the dugout.
And a liner into left center field. That's down for a base hit. Turang's around third. Here comes the throw home. Turang is saved! Turang got to the backside of the plate, and he got in there safely. And the Brewers walk off the Twins.
Brewers beat the Twins 4-3 in 10 innings. Also in extra innings, Phillies 7-6 over the Blue Jays. Also in there, you heard the Red Sox getting beat by the Athletics. They're losing back-to-back games for the first time since the All-Star break, first time since the end of June and the start of July, June 30, July 1st. Back-to-back losses for them, although it's
A's beat him, huh?
Awesome streak. The Athletics take them down.
Their shortstop, Jacob Wilson, 111 games without an error, sets a new record. Of course, he's an antelope.
And he
played college ball at Grand Canyon University.
Said his dad drilled deep defense first.
His dad played in the major leagues and was an assistant coach there. And so he came over, I think he's a Thousand Oaks kid, and came over and played for Grand Canyon. It was a first-round draft choice.
All that defense, but he still DHs sometimes. He's talking about that. It's the only time he doesn't take ground balls when he DHs.
Not even in the pregame?
That's what he said.
Huh.
You have been missing the effects of replay, and the automatic ball strike call leads to fewer arguments, fewer beefs, fewer confrontations. But we had one around a balk. Did you enjoy it? Chris Sale ejected before the first pitch of the Braves game with the Yankees, had words with the umpires a day after they called him for a balk that scored a run in a 5-4 loss. He's still hot the next day.
Yeah, it was a significant run in that situation. The balk is the most misunderstood rule, and we can arguably be the most controversial one, because usually when they balk, it's not something that's obvious. And then the umpire has to make a spectacle of it. He has to get out. If it's the home plate umpire, he
Spread
has
his
to
wings.
get out like in the field of play and point vigorously how many runners are on base if it's just first to second. But then when you got third to home, man, and if it's a field in the field umpire, he has to come forward like about 10 yards. And so I guess they can't review that. And they just, that one, which isn't often, always leads to some type of commotion, or usually leads.
Your Diamondbacks take 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers won one. They broke the losing streak. But nonetheless, the Diamondbacks take the series. They win 4-2 yesterday in the old rubber game.
We don't settle for that, though, because in the game that they lost, there was a tie score, back-to-back triples in the ninth inning in a 1-1 game, 1-0, then it became 1-1. Runner on third and no outs, and they do not score him. So we're this close from sweeping. And it's the first time they've taken the season series from the Dodgers since 2018.
And despite the Dodgers' excellence, they've now lost 3 series in a row to teams that could be in the playoffs. Could this be a sign of things to come? Someone could take a playoff series from them, PK, and all this gnashing of teeth could go away. Or be minimized.
Again, you just go on the Dodgers' postseason results. I don't think that it's based on who wins the World Series. Because if that were the case, there would be not much of an issue. And the Dodgers, for the Players Association, during the week, they had a 4-game series the Diamondbacks did with the Padres, and they didn't draw more than 22,000 in any of those games. And you can argue that series was even more important because they're not going to catch the Dodgers, but they can ward off the Padres. But they didn't draw more than 22,000, and when they brought the Dodgers in, granted it was a weekend, but they had 46,000 every game. So are the Dodgers good or bad for baseball? Well, certainly for the Diamondbacks' pocketbook.
They were real good Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
And I saw some people in San Diego talking about, the attendance during the week was pathetic. The problem is for the Arizona people, the Diamondbacks, in the dead of summer, they don't have any tourists. They draw no tourists because nobody goes there in the summer. You get out of there in the summer. So it's just the locals. And obviously there's way more people from L.A. than there is from San Diego. But in San Diego's case, they draw. In fact, as an example, my sister has seen 2 games in San Diego this season.
Escape. Beat the Heat.
Yes.
So the thing about the Dodgers, yes, they can run away with the division, but and yes, the playoffs are separate. But if they have the 3rd best record in the National League or the 4th best record,
then they're going to have to go through the wild card.
Well, I get that. But does that lessen the... if you have the best record in the regular season, you win 110 games.
it's not based on the Dodgers. That's just... The Dodgers is a talking point. That's all.
I agree.
The owners want a salary cap, whether the Dodgers go 162-0 or 0-162.
Now, that I believe. The owners want to see their franchise values go up.
So I don't...
They want a salary cap.
We need to get off the Dodgers. They're just the the example as a talking point, but it is not solely based on what the Dodgers do or don't do.
That I believe.
And there's a lot of run. The Dodgers, they make great financial or they make great personnel decisions. Except I can name 5-6 guys that they've signed that have sucked.
Yeah.
It's just that they have the money to overcome it.
And if they sign some of these guys for too long. There was a time Mookie Betts was a major advantage. I don't think people think he's a major advantage right now.
Not this season.
No. Padres trying to make a savvy move, picking up Austin Hayes after he's designated for assignment by the White Sox, and he hit a home run, and they hit 4 homers, and they beat the Astros 7-2. Bees lost Oklahoma City 6-5 in their series finale. They lost 5 out of 6 in that series a week after getting swept in a 6-game series. They're like 2-16 in the last 18. They can open a 6-game series in El Paso tomorrow. DJ and PK.
#RSL.
Luna skating on the end line, back to Salons and scores! And the flag stays down, and Salons puts RSL in front in the 17th minute. Gonzalez picks it off. Gonzalez dispossessed by Ruiz. Ruiz gets bumped. Ruiz goes forward. Ruiz shot. Ruiz scores! Pablo Ruiz from just inside the 18, and he beats the keeper. 2 goals in 2 nights for Pablo, and it's 4-0.
4-0 shutout for Real Salt Lake. Unfortunately for them, a bunch of other teams in Major League Soccer have won twice, and they are chasing so many teams. I mean, they could win and get help and still get in, but it seems like the odds aren't likely. But they did snap the 4-game winless streak. They got just their 3rd shutout of the year, so plenty of good things to build on. They host Juarez tomorrow night at America First Field in the 3rd and probably final game in the League's Cup. And Pablo Ruiz, where have you been? Well, he's been away with a couple of knee injuries. It's been a couple of long years, but he's looked great these last 2 nights. And it's not just the goals, although the goals have looked good, but he's not favoring the knee or protecting it. He's going into challenges hard and colliding with guys and playing with a customary fire that would make you think he's from New Jersey. Royals lost to the Denver Summit 2-1. Denver wins it with a late goal in stoppage time. DJ and PK.
#Golf.
Michael Brennan wins the Wyndham Championship by 3 strokes, shooting 22 under. Patrick Fishburne tied for 49th at 6 under. Tony Finau, 4 under par, tied for 61st. And Kino was tied for 83 at 3 over. There's also a battle, PK. Some guys trying to squeeze into the top 70. Some other big-name guys that did not squeeze into the top 70 and make the playoff. Brooks Koepka was at the microphone talking pretty straightforward and pretty brutal analysis of his own play there. Just terrible that he's not in the playoff, and he used the word pathetic multiple times and did not like the way he's been putting.
Yeah, he's very critical of his game, so he's got to get better there. Brennan was the 2025 winner of the Bank of Utah down there in St. George at Black Desert. So that's his 2nd win.
21-year-old Jackson Koiven clinches the final FedEx Cup playoff spot. He came to the tour late this year, played 6 tournaments, and squeezes into the top 70. Not bad.
Just 5.
Yeah. Oh, 5 tournaments in 6 weeks?
I think that's what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, and he won his 3rd start. That's what pushed him through.
Just 21 years old.
If he's a rising, I'm not going to call him a star by a long shot, but we'll see in time over the next 3, 4, 5 years if he reaches that status. It'd be a name to watch.
John Rahm wins the season points total on the LIV Tour for the 2nd time. Joaquin Niemann went wire to wire at Trump International in New Jersey to win their tournament. And now they're supposed to be investors, but how much money? What's happening? See how that plays out.
Now, I was watching a little bit of that. I came across it. I did not know it was on, but it was on. And my wife says, "What are you watching this for? Go to the PGA one." And I said, "Well, because they were showing cool shots of the city when they'd go to commercial."
I want to watch cool shots in New York. Yeah. Remember my childhood.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, DJ and PK, that is what is trending. Brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Coming up, Jason Cole's going to join us next, longtime NFL writer and analyst. We'll get his thoughts as the NFL ramps up. Steve Bartle, Ute Insider for KSL Sports at 8 o'clock. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
3, 2, 1. This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeComb.
For Utah, it's offense and maybe defensive line, but primarily the offensive line. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I got to dig a little deeper here. But honestly, the more I kept looking at it, the more I kept thinking, it really comes down to those two position groups. Can Utah have offensive linemen that can step up?
You know, I think the big question mark outside of the offensive line for Utah nationally is Morgan Scalley.
Yeah.
But, nobody even talks about that around here because I think everybody has a real comfort factor with the way things looked in that bowl game, honestly. But the bottom line was they were sharp. They took advantage of opportunity more so than maybe a Whittingham team would. It felt like the guys were loose and ready to ball. That's like a sign. And then you hear all the stuff from the guys, how happy they are.
Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, and it's time to welcome Jason Cole back to the program. Longtime NFL writer and analyst. Jason, good morning.
Good morning. What's going on?
Well, the NFL's on the rise. We've had a preseason game. The countdown is on. There's people probably getting ready for fantasy football drafts here in a few weeks. We thought it was time to talk a little NFL. The offseason has been dominated by the Rams. The Seahawks won the Super Bowl, but the Rams won the offseason. Do you have the Rams as the clear favorite going into this year? Is it Seattle? Is it somebody else?
It's a good question. And I would say that the Rams are the most desperate team because they know this is Stafford's last year, probably McVay's last year. So they're all in on this one. And I think that they get a sense with Donald that, they got one more shot with Donald. So I would give them that nod based on desperation. And I would also go that, they have the best quarterback on that side. Now, I know that, Seattle won the title, but I just still don't believe in Sam Darnold. And the defense was great, but I just get the feeling that they're repeating what they did with Russell Wilson, which most fans would take what they did with Russell Wilson. That'd be great. But I don't see them winning a second title with this iteration. You got to have a better quarterback than that.
Speaking of quarterbacks, where do you stand on rookies playing the first year? Obviously with the Raiders, Mendoza, and they got Cousins over there. So some have had success, some haven't. What do you think?
I think it sort of depends on do you actually have a plan on when you're going to get him on the field? So with Mendoza, I sort of understand not starting him right away. But when do you plan to get him on the field? Because it should be sooner than later with a guy who's this mature, this knowledgeable, this much experience, having played essentially 5 years of college football, being a slightly older guy. So it slightly surprises me. But both sides have worked. I mean, Mahomes sat for a year, right?
Yeah.
Didn't play the first year. I mean, he's great. Carson Palmer had a great career. He didn't play his first year. So there's something to it. There's also, here's a really important part. Can you actually protect your guy? And again, there are some guys out there, and I know Pete Priskin used to argue about this all the time. He'd say, guys are experienced in college. They know what they're doing. Just get them out there and play. And he really believes in that. Well, okay, what happened with David Carr?
Yeah.
You got him out there. You couldn't protect him. He became a shell of himself, and that's the number one overall pick that, had a very disappointing career. So I'm iffy on it. I think I leave it to the judgment of football people. But I also always ask, what is the plan here to get him on the field? And it should be sooner than later in this era, but maybe not right away.
In the NFL, we see teams go from worst to first and put together tremendous turnarounds. The Bears went from fourth in the NFC North to first. They're plus 5 or 6 wins last year. That was great. Now, there were a couple teams that went from third place to first. Jacksonville was plus 9 wins. New England improved 10 wins over the prior year. Who do you think will do it this year? Who will be that team? And if I said it's going to be the Giants, do you think I'm crazy?
No, the Giants can't, because I think the division is weak, right? So if you don't believe in the division, if you don't think Philly is going to be that good this year, and I do have some real serious doubts about Philly, the makeup of that team is questionable. If you don't believe in the Cowboys, which I don't, I mean, I just think they're frauds. If you don't really truly believe in Washington, but I would say you're picking a couple of good candidates, or we have sort of arrived at it, between the Giants and Washington, that could really step up. Now, Washington wasn't that bad last year. The Giants were, so there's more room for improvement there. The Dolphins aren't going anywhere. Minnesota, I'm kind of curious about. Can they do sort of do a little bit of a rebound? They're getting Kyler Murray. Again, I don't believe in Kyler Murray long term. I don't think that's a solution. But you kind of wonder, is that a team that can rebound a little bit? The Raiders would be fun to pick, but they're not going anywhere in that division. I mean, it's just that division is too top heavy. And obviously, like a team, you would say a team like Arizona, they're not going anywhere, despite the fact that they got a good rookie running back who can sort of stabilize that team. But that division is just too top heavy. So I think you settled in on the Giants is a pretty good target.
Now, you mentioned that Cardinals running back, and what was he taken, third? And I think the year before, Genti out of Boise State was a high pick. It seemed like for a while there that the NFL teams had shied away from running backs that high, and now we've got two pretty high back-to-back, obviously. Is that something that you see going forward, or that we can find one later?
I think that most of the time you're still going to try and find one later, because the value there's not a lot of market value in taking a running back in the first round, unless you're going to absolutely play him right away and you have no answer there, right? Or if you happen to think that he's truly special. And I think the case of Genti, I think he's going to be special, despite the fact that he struggled a little bit his rookie year. I think Love, good player. I'm not sure he's a great player. I think that this was a really weak draft, and that's why that forced the running back up. But I will say, like in an overall sense, football goes through these iterations. Everybody plays wide open for a while, so what do defenses have to do? Defenses have to get quick and small and be able to cover, because everybody goes wide open. Well, as soon as the defenses are primarily quick and small and fast to cover wide open football, it's like, okay, now let's go back to playing power football, right? And let's play that iteration of football. And now if you're going to play power football, you better get an explosive running back who can take advantage of that. So that this is sort of the ebbs and flows of how football works. And I don't think that it ever really lasts anymore, because people change their style of play so quickly, because they're capable of changing their style of play so quickly. And the one thing I'll also add on top of this, and I really worry about this for football generally, in the case of the Texas lineman going back to college after trying to make it in the NFL, like there's going to be a lot of old guys playing offensive line in the college level until they figure out a way to change these rules, right? Well, if there's a bunch of old guys playing college football who can't make it in the NFL, who are the young guys who are going to develop in college who can play in the NFL, right? So the NFL pretty soon is going to have some serious offensive line issues, not having good enough players there. And, I mean, we're talking by soon, I mean within the next 3 to 4 years, where you just don't have guys who can hold up. And it's going to change the way that you play football in very significant ways. So the NFL better be looking at how do they develop offensive linemen, how do they get some young guys out there and give them actual experience and teach them what they're doing. Until college football changes what their makeup is. And I'm not sure that college football has a real hope on how to change that unless the politicians get involved, and that's a mess.
Kansas City Chiefs were the story for years. They either won the title or you had to beat them to win the title. They went 6-11 last year. Now, part of that is obviously Mahomes with the knee injury, and they lost their last 6 games. But nonetheless, they were 6-5 after 11 games. They weren't exactly dominating. How far back do they come? I can see them being in the mix for the playoffs. I can't see them being in the mix for the Super Bowl. It feels like they've missed on too many draft picks, and Mahomes is too expensive. Do you buy any or all of that?
Oh, I don't believe it. Look, I don't believe the expense part. That's a really convenient argument for people. But even if the cap is $300 million, even if you're paying your quarterback $55 or $60 million, that leaves $240 million for the rest of your roster, right? And rookie salaries are pretty stagnant. So your rookies are only making about, total about $25-30 million. Your minimum salary guys are stagnant too. So there's a ton of cash left to pay guys. What the Chiefs have missed on is they haven't gotten any wide receivers. Xavier Worthy, has not panned out. He's not become what they want him to do. They want him to become another version of Tyreek Hill, and he's just not a very good football player. He doesn't know how to get open. He doesn't know how to go get the ball. He's not a very tough kid. Got Rashee Rice, who doesn't put a priority on playing football, and he's a good, solid football player. I think they overvalue him because they're so desperate. He's going to be a really good number 3, but he's not a great player, and he's not a great player who puts his total emphasis and total love into football. He's distracted by too many other stupid things. So who's the wide receiver on that team that you trust right now? I mean, Travis Kelce, tight end, still a nice player, but, he's showing his age. So they need more help from Mahomes. And I know they, going out and getting Kenneth Walker gives them a little bit more balance to their offense and gives them a guy who's a little more explosive than Pacheco. But I think he's only a little bit more explosive than Pacheco, not a lot. And so I just don't like where they're going offensively. I think that, if they get their injuries under control and everything else, they're back to a 9-10, maybe an 11-win team. And in the playoffs, the way you talk about it, but they don't have guys who scare the defense, other than Mahomes. And Mahomes dummied it 2 years ago, dummied it up really well until they got to the Super Bowl and they got overwhelmed by the Eagles. So I'm just really wondering, has the Hunt family sort of said, okay, we won our titles, we had our nice run, we're now just going to cash out and take the money and just have Mahomes and Reed, and they'll make it work somehow, and we'll be okay.
Preseason football is upon us. We've had one game, and now it really ramps up here coming up in a few days. What's your assessment on if young guys, particularly rookies, shine? How much stock do you put into that?
Look, these are times when only the rookies play. When only rookies play, you see really vanilla football. You don't see exotic coverages. You don't see a lot of change. I don't put a lot of stock, not just in preseason, but I don't put a lot of stock in the first 2 or 3 regular season games. Not that they don't count. Don't get me wrong. But your veterans aren't playing until then. So they're not ready to hit. They're not ready to tackle. So you see a lot of really bad football in the first 2 or 3 weeks. And I don't think teams round into shape until you get to week 4, 5, 6. And then you have a real idea of what teams are like. It's nice to see football, and obviously it has some meaning for the young guys who are playing. And coaches are measuring it, and they want to see what the mistakes are. They want to see who knows how to handle it. Carson Beck is doing a nice job in that first game, and you'd like to think maybe the Cardinals have something to work with, and that was nice. But we're talking the level of football they're playing right now for the next few weeks is not even close to what it's going to be by week 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, I asked that because my sister has season tickets for the Cardinals, and she wants to know how good Carson Beck's going to be.
Well, you saw about from Carson Beck in college is a lot more indicative of what he really is, which is, a nice solid college quarterback who made some critical mistakes in key games. And until he does that in regular season games until you see him change that. I don't believe the Hall of Fame game is any real strong indicator of what he is in his career. Like, I just don't believe that he's like a full-time starter. But hey, prove me wrong, man. Like, that's the beauty of the game. Like, go become a star. Like, this is awesome. But football has just preseason football is not what it used to be, and it's going to continue to change as we get towards 18 games, and coaches become even more protective of their players and don't want to play them very much in preseason or even in training camp because they got so many games to worry about.
Look at the Broncos as 20-1 favorites to win the Super Bowl. That's a team that was in the AFC title game but didn't have their quarterback as Bo Nix was hurt. Shouldn't they have better odds there? How do you think they stack up at the top of the AFC?
You would say that, except it's a year where, Baltimore dipped and wasn't very good either. Cincinnati didn't get their defense together, dipped. Like, did they take advantage? Kansas City, we just talked about what happened with Kansas City. Was Denver really good, or did they take advantage of a year? And you can say this about New England, too. Did they take advantage of a year when everybody was down? And I think that's the theory on Denver. What I tend to believe is they're a very well-coached team with high demands from a great leader who knows how to max out the most from his talent, who did cover up some things with their defense early on. The defense got a little weaker as time went on, but it's still pretty good. And the wild card is Bo Nix. The wild card is where is the ceiling, where is the floor for Bo Nix? And he's one of those guys where it's like, you don't know, like, can Sean Payton coax him into being a star and to becoming more consistent and becoming a guy who can really attack? Because you don't see that all the time from Bo Nix, but you do see some highlight reel stuff at the end of games, right? Can he become more consistent? Or is it the Bo Nix where in college, between his two stops in college, there were times where he was cratering, right? And looked like he might fall through the floor. He didn't, and he got through it, but he's one of those guys who's like super erratic. Right? And I think I'm belaboring my point here. And I just don't trust him yet. But I'm still curious about him. I'm still excited to see what he's going to be. And if it's the upshot, then Denver's a serious contender. If it's the downshot, then or he just continues to kind of muddle along, then they'll muddle along. So this is going to be carried largely on the future of Bo Nix.
Jason, we appreciate it as always. Thanks for coming on and talking so much NFL football with us. We'll talk to you again.
All right, guys. Be good. All right. Take care.
There's Jason Cole, longtime NFL writer and analyst. The one-score games, PK, Broncos were 9-2. If they come back to earth on that, they won't be in the great position they were last year. They're hosting all their playoff games.
Well, I hope for your Chargers that's the case.
Yeah. DJ and PK coming up, top of the hour, Steve Bartle. Ute Insider for KSL Sports. He's here in about 15 minutes. Stay with us.
Welcome to This is Jay Scott and Ben Anderson.
I mean, honestly, this is uncharted territory for Utah. Other than Witt like to change his offensive coordinator every 45 minutes, we have not seen a switch at head coach for Utah, hardly ever. I mean, they are the Pittsburgh Steelers of college football. Kind of had a couple of coaches, and they've all stepped in and been very successful.
I think Morgan probably will try and find the sweet spot in being a little bit more aggressive. If he tries to go full Mike Leach on it, Utah's going to learn some painful lessons. But
there's more room for error than Witt thought.
There is, and I think
in a good way.
And we saw that in the bowl game. Mm-hmm. Deep down, Witt is a soccer coach, and I don't think that Morgan is a soccer coach. And when I say that, I mean like, oh, you've got a 1-0 lead. Well, let's sit on that thing. Yep. Let's anchor it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Love that strategy.
Catch Jake and Ben afternoons from 2 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
KSL Sports Zone and Beehive Meals are honoring people that impact youth sports in our communities. Nominate the youth sports volunteer you know for the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week at KSLSports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to Jake and Ben for the winner. It's the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week. We mentioned this, PK, during What is Trending, and you got a question up here on Facebook. What do you remember about Don Nelson? Basketball legend. He was the winningest coach in NBA history for a while. He's since been passed by Greg Popovich. Michael says, I remember he tried to fight Karl Malone in Dallas once.
Why did he try to fight him?
Chest bump, headbutt, forehead together, and then yell at each other.
Because he was a character. That's what I'm talking about. He had a lot of personality in that way. He was an entertainer in his own way, in a manner that a lot of coaches are button up and all that stuff, and that wasn't his way. So yes, I don't think that Don Nelson was dumb enough to come to blows with Malone. He would have lost that. Don Nelson was a big man, but at the same time, Malone was in his prime and was chiseled.
25
still
years.
is.
Generational age gap between them.
Yeah, but they did go nose to nose, and that in a sense, that is nothing but entertainment. I was entertained by that. That's why I remember it. That's why he remembers it all these years later, right?
Zachary says he always looked angry. He's the Mavericks and Warriors coach. He's also the Bucks coach and the Celtics player, and I don't think he was always angry.
No.
Sometimes he was. He had a total soft side. They drafted Josh Grant out of the University of Utah. And Josh played for a couple of years and then went overseas. And there was a game here, and he called him over to explain to something. I mean, he's clearly trying to make Josh look good in front of the hometown fans.
I mean, he's a human being. I don't think that he
too.
was any more different or whatever, better or worse than anybody else.
Nancy says he was coach. He had quiet toughness. I never thought him as particularly quiet.
I'd have to say run-of-the-mill that way. But he would put himself out there. And he's like, in the Jerry Sloan manner, when he played, as you've brought up many times, the game wasn't as popular and you had to sell it. And he made himself available for interviews and all that type of stuff and had something to say. And he was an innovator. He tried the small ball, the point forward, all these things, the hack a shack and all this, a lot of that stuff. I think it was, I saw Jason Richardson, remember him as a player. He brought somebody in, was on the team, and Don Nelson brought him in and told him to go, bench guy, big guy, said, I want you to foul out, meaning go in and be rough. Mm-hmm. And according to Jason Richardson, who I believe told the story that I saw yesterday, was that he said that the kid didn't go and do anything. He didn't need any fouls. So the next day, he had him run and for like 45 minutes. And at the end of the 45 minutes, Jason said that they brought the team around the player, and Don Nelson said, okay, I want you to say thank you to this player for his contributions, but he won't be with us anymore. He cut him.
That's a heck of a story.
So, he was trying to do things of ways to win that weren't traditional. I don't think he ever sniffed the finals. I'd have to go back and check. But I don't judge a coach by how many titles he's won. I judge a coach by how much he got out of his team, because some teams are built to win and others aren't. And so what did you get out of him? That's what's going to be fun about this year with Will Hardy. We've been able to evaluate him on a creative standpoint, but it wasn't intent to win. So from a winning and losing record, his record stinks, but you're not going to evaluate him on that. Now this season and going forward, we have more of an opportunity to do that. Not saying that we're going to evaluate him if he makes a deep playoff run. If they do, great. But if he doesn't, well, I'm still not necessarily going to evaluate him on that, because I don't know what the team is built to do yet. It's so brand new going into this season, but it's going to be fun to watch that.
From point forwards to center shooting three-pointers, he was on the cutting edge. Yeah. For anyone who gets upset with all the 7-footers out shooting three-pointers instead of going down inside, he had Manute Bol who was as skinny as could be and get pushed around in the lane to be sure. And he had him out there shooting set shots, but Manute was 7'6", so he could get the set shot off over everybody, shooting threes.
He was trying to create ways to win.
Had a lot of playoff teams, but to your point, a lot of teams went out in the first and second round, but he didn't get to coach the dominant stars of the eras he was in. He had good players in Milwaukee, and he had Sidney Moncrief, but he didn't have Dr. J or Larry Bird or the Celtics power line.
And he is responsible for Mr. Maverick, and that's Dirk Nowitzki.
Yep. And Dirk made that really clear.
Yeah.
Steph Curry also gave him a major shout-out.
And Don Nelson at the time called Dirk Nowitzki his German son. So he built outstanding relationships, which in the end...
Probably more important than the winning and losing, right?
Yeah, when you think about
how
it.
you treat people and the relationships you build. And
yeah, I know winning, in pro sports is such a big thing, and we make such a big deal about it, as we should. But in the end, when you've got all these relationships and so many people are saying positive things about you, it probably matters.
Steve Bartle joins us next, KSL Sports. He covers the University of Utah, week 2 of the Morgan Scalley era. We'll talk with Steve about the way things are evolving up on the hill. Stay with us. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. Next week, you can win tickets to see Motley Crue with performances by Tesla and Extreme at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on September 21st. Listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win.
Motley Crue? Yeah. Girls, girls, girls.
Long way from the country you're listening to now, PK. And yet a part of your youth, our youth, many people's youth.
Top 5 songs are country in a Billboard. First time ever.
There it is, taking over the world.
I just know my stuff.
See?
I converted 15 years ago. Going to see a country star this week at Sandy Amphitheater. Looking forward to it.
DJ PK, we're joined now by Steve Bartle, Ute insider for KSL Sports. Steve, good morning.
Morning, fellas. How we doing?
Great. How about you?
Good, man. Ready to start the week. We'll be up at practice here in a couple hours. So, yeah, man, good times.
I'll see you there, and I appreciate last week when you gave me a full body hug, but don't do that again this week.
Well, PK, I just finished up at the gym. I figured a little arm wrestling match today, maybe a little bit,
Yeah, my ribs are still sore.
No, you said you were kind of sweaty, too, so arm wrestling won't be able to get a good grip, You're just...
It's hot out.
It's 100 degrees, and you're making your own gravy, Steve.
Yeah, man, it's, looking forward to seeing you up there, PK.
So the big thing is, the 5 offensive linemen, and we know that several of them got a lot of on-the-field experience last year because the Utes had a lot of good games in which they could rotate guys in. Now, it wasn't with the games on the line and all that stuff, although they did play in the bowl game. So what do you take from that as far as a bunch of guys who got dozens of snaps last year, but weren't starters? How does that translate into when they've got to line up when the game is on the line and you're going against the first-team defense?
Yeah, that is the big question mark for Utah is that offensive line. And, Coach Gross shared with us at his media availability last week is that he feels he's got 10 offensive linemen that they feel comfortable with that could play, and so, while that's encouraging on one hand that they feel they have 10 guys, they're 10 deep, it's about finding that best combination of 5. And, with the guys that played last year, there were a couple of guys, Soloto Amoyai and Keith Olson, that played, a combined 800-ish snaps last year because they were, utilized as 6th and 7th offensive linemen. And Utah liked that personnel package last year, used it quite a bit. And, those 2 guys are going to be key figures in sort of setting the examples and how things are done. And so I think it's valuable that obviously that Utah was able to rotate those two guys in pretty consistently each and every week. And then, as you mentioned, there were a couple other guys, Zeraway Williams and Alex Harrison, where those guys, got some mop-up duty. And Utah had a lot of mop-up duty last year. And so those guys, also gained some valuable experience getting on the field, in a game day atmosphere at Rice-Eccles Stadium or on the road. And yeah, it's not the same as, being in the heat of the competition, in those first half and third quarters, but still to get on the field, to kind of get into a certain sort of get to a level of comfort, performing on the field under the bright lights, I think is valuable. But, clearly there's still significant questions around the offensive line, and, the experience that they gained last year is still fairly minimal. So I think that is the big question mark for Utah in fall camp, is finding the starting five, finding 3 or 4 players that you feel can, round out your depth, potentially create even a rotation, and move forward from there. In terms of, the makeup and maybe some of the strengths of this group, I feel like Utah has some pretty solid athletes up front where, pass protection might be the strength of this group. My question is, how physical are they going to be, in the run game? That's what Utah's offensive line was last year. They were, clean, assignment sound, and physical, overwhelmingly physical outside of a couple matchups. And so, that's going to be the big question mark. They've got to establish a certain level of physicality, and that's going to be the key over the next couple of weeks now that the pads are on.
When Kevin McGiven, offensive coordinator, talks about Devin Dampier and finding out what's best for his skill set, what is he going to find out, and what might be different than last year? Because it looked like last year's offense was pretty well set up for his skill set, although they were running the ball behind a dominant offensive line, so that makes things pretty simple and straightforward. But maybe Morgan has appetite for more risk than Kyle did. So what's this going to end up looking like?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of fascinated to see what it actually looks like. We got to see a lot of the offense in spring ball. We got to watch a lot of practice, and it was probably due to the fact that it was spring ball, but we saw a lot of passing game. We saw, we didn't see as much run game as we saw the year previous in spring ball, and that probably is due to wanting to limit the level of physicality that you're playing with in spring, but also I think it is kind of indicative of where they want to take this offense. And so with Dampier, he came from New Mexico, and the big question was, how is he going to improve his touchdown to interception ratio? And lo and behold, he comes to Utah where there was a lot of talent, up front at the skill positions, maybe not the elite talent, but certainly more than he had at New Mexico, and at least at the skill positions. And, for Dampier, it was about becoming more of an efficient decision maker, taking care of the ball. And I think that was something that he really embraced in coming to Utah. Well, now it's, the offensive line has moved on. I think now it's about, kind of, going back to the closet and finding that Superman cape, playing the way that he did at New Mexico. It's about now marrying that efficiency, that decision-making that he developed last year, while also embracing a little bit more of that, playmaker at quarterback like he was. And he was still really good last year, doing it as a dual-threat quarterback, finishing with over 3,300 yards and 34 touchdowns. But he's going to have to likely create a little bit more than he did last year. He's not going to be able to sit in the pocket for 5-6 seconds, without pressure bearing down on him. There's likely going to be pressure in his face consistently, and he's got to overcome it. And for Dampier, he understood what this season is going to ask of him. He's trimmed up about 10, 15 pounds, so he's slimmer and back to the playing weight he was at New Mexico. He was playing last year at around 220, and I think that's going to kind of give him that. You know, he was elusive last year, but I think just kind of getting back to what we saw at New Mexico a little bit more. And then again, it's about the decision making and embracing some of this passing game stuff. And I think that's where, you know, Dampier's, we can only assess like what we've seen, what we've heard throughout the offseason, but it seems like Dev took the offseason really seriously in working on, you know, working within the playbook, you know, getting out to the, you know, setting up player run practices and working quite a bit with his receivers to develop that chemistry. So, you know, he did all that he could this offseason to put himself in position to take that next step as a quarterback. And that's going to be, you know, we'll see what that actually looks like this season once they get under the bright lights and they kick off and all that. But that's sort of where they want to take this, is they want the ball in Dampier's hands. They want him to be that, you know, that playmaker, that efficient decision maker, and just be that quarterback that they need to help them contend in the Big 12.
Compared to last season, how do you think the new offensive regime is going to utilize Ficklin?
That's a great question, PK. I think Bird, he's going to be kind of a key piece to the offense. You know, he accounted for 13 touchdowns last year, and not all of those were in mop-up duty. I think only a handful of those, you know, came, you know, late in the fourth quarter. He played a lot last year in the thick of the competition coming in for Dampier, and obviously, you know, Dampier's health kind of contributed to that and allowed Ficklin to get on the field as a quarterback. I think this year, you know, you could see his role expand to becoming more of a versatile weapon while still, you know, incorporating him as a passer. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how exactly they utilize him. But I do think they want to get him on the field and do some different things. I think, you know, they want to involve him in the passing game as a receiver. They want to, you know, get him in the backfield and potentially hand the ball off. He is just a dynamic athlete that I think Utah is going to explore, you know, a lot of different ways that they can get him on the field, you know, with Dampier still on the field as well. So, you know, he's going to be, you know, a pretty significant piece to the offense this season, which, too, I think is still geared around developing him as a quarterback because, you know, he is the guy that is expected to take over once Dampier's career comes to an end.
Parker's talked about being not just 1,000-yard rusher, but what about 1,200? And there's people wondering about 1,500 if he averages 100 a game. Do you think there are that many carries in it in the run game this year for him?
Yeah, you know, I think that's going to be really interesting with Parker and what this run game looks like. Like, I do think he is set up to be the undisputed, you know, top running back. I don't think we're going to see a situation like we saw last year with N'Keary Rodgers, you know, carrying the bulk of the load, you know, early on in the season. This is going to be Parker's, you know, backfield from the beginning of the season on. And, you know, what he showed, you know, over those last couple of weeks was, you know, truly dynamic playmaking. And I think there's a lot of, you know, excitement around what he can become in this offense. I don't think Utah is as concerned with getting him to 1,000 or 1,200. And frankly, you know, it's a goal that Parker has, but he's also acknowledged that he's more focused on the team aspect. And so I think 1,200 yards, yeah, it's a bit greedy. It's a bit high. But I think 1,200 total yards, I think that's going to be really doable for him because it sounds like, you know, McGiven wants to incorporate the running backs in the passing game quite a bit more than what we saw last year under Jason Beck. And I think that's an area of the game where Parker can actually be, you know, really dynamic and expand his skill set and production. So, you know, I think he's certainly capable of getting to 1,200 rushing yards. He has the athleticism. He has the big playability. But I think to your point, DJ, is what is that workload going to be like? When you have a dual-threat quarterback like Dampier and like Bird Ficklin, they're going to account for a lot of carries. You know, this can he get to, you know, 150, 160, 170, 80, carries. If he can get to 170, 1,000 yards is definitely going to be within reach. It's just, does he get there? That's going to be a big question. And I think with him starting the season as the unquestioned RB1 and the guy that they want to feature, I think it's certainly, doable to get to that number. But the presence of two dual threat quarterbacks that Utah also wants to involve in the run game in Dampier and Ficklin, that's also going to take some carries away from him. So I think 1,200 yards is definitely doable for him. Total yards, rushing is going to be a little greedy.
That's what I'm interested to see with Dampier. We saw at New Mexico, he was lighting it up big time. And, he had a very good season at Utah Shore, for no doubt about it. But we're expecting more. But at the same time, Scally has kind of dropped, I don't know if they're hints, but just inclinations of getting the ball downfield much more than they have been in the past. He's willing to not experiment, but see how it goes. So I'm wondering how Dampier is going to balance that, because of the fact that I always thought this team with him at quarterback, when it's third and short, is virtually unstoppable, because it's almost impossible for him to not get 2 or 3 yards virtually anytime he wants. At the same time, they want to get the ball downfield. How do you think all that's going to balance out?
Yeah, I think that's going to rest on the shoulders of Dampier to become a sound decision maker in those moments. That is going to be the big key for him. When we were talking about things that have to happen this season for Utah, one of the key factors for me was Dampier, increasing, the rate at which he's making decisions. He's got to make quick decisions to get the ball out of his hands, first and foremost, to protect the offensive line. But then, too, deepening his understanding of when to take those shots and when not to, when to tuck it. That's going to be, a big determining factor on, one, how explosive this offense is, but also how efficient it is. That's got to be on Dampier to really make it a point of emphasis to improve his decision making. They've upgraded that wide receiver room, where they now have, players in that room that can threaten, the intermediate and deeper areas of the field way more consistently than they could last year. I think there was a ceiling on the passing game on how efficient down the field they could be. They just didn't have the guys that could attack and get deeper down the field consistently. Now with Braden Pagan, with Kyrie Scholes and Ricky Johnson added to, a Larry Simmons and some of these other players, they now have players that raise the ceiling a little bit on, how consistently they can push the ball down the field. There's obviously a lot of criticism of Dampier and his arm strength and, his ability to push the ball down the field, but he was incredibly efficient and accurate in the 10 to 19-yard range. And, now you're going to have receivers that can access those areas of the field much more frequently, much more consistently, and that's going to help Dampier push the ball down the field a little bit more, even just pushing it, from 9 yards to 12 yards in terms of the average depth of target. Now you're pushing it 15, 16 yards down the field more consistently, which is just going to expand the passing game. So I feel like that's where Dampier has to develop is, one, his decision-making, and then his ability and chemistry with those receivers, in the intermediate areas of the field.
Well, we just spent an entire segment talking about the offense. How about that? Not a defensive question in there. That's pretty solid work by us, don't you think?
I think it's what everybody's curious about. Obviously with Colton Swan taking over, there's some intrigue there, but I think everybody wants to see this offense because it has been a lot of receiver talk, and Scally hasn't been shy to talk about it. It's what the people want to hear, DJ.
Exactly.
I agree.
And that's why we did it. Steve, thanks so much. We appreciate it. We'll have you back to talk defense later, but that's just what we say before we talk offense again for an entire segment.
Amen. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Steve. Steve Bartle, Utah Utes insider for KSL Sports. You can follow him at KSLSports.com and the KSL app. He's writing stuff. He's got videos up. He is up there living and breathing Utes nonstop.
Oh, yeah, we got two guys up there every day, man. Josh Furlong also.
Have to get Josh on the show as well.
We did last week.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. When we come back, rumors being addressed officially on social media. It's a new era. It's not how things worked in the 20th century, PK. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
They've been doing it for a while.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
I think the Jazz want to make the playoffs this year, and they really have no motivation for not making the playoffs this year because their draft pick goes to the Memphis Grizzlies in the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade. How motivated are the Jazz actually going to feel to maximize the win total of this roster using all the assets available to them to get there? My guess is it's actually not as high as fans would think because they don't have to do anything exactly right.
The truth is they are dedicated to it. But that doesn't mean they have to do anything about it right now.
Sure.
But no, not one person in that building, if you went up to them and said, hey, is the Bosnian Beak your answer at center? Not one of them is going to say yes.
Right. Or Jackson Hayes.
Or any of that. No, they're not.
Yeah.
So, yes, they do need to address the problem, for sure. Do they need to address it right now?
I don't think so.
Absolutely not. No, why would they?
Catch Jake and Ben afternoons from 2 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join Scotty G and the coach tomorrow, August 11th at the ballpark at America First Square during Mountain Supply's Customer Appreciation Day. They'll have swag, knowledgeable vendors, food, raffles, batting practice on the field, bring a glove, also a mini golf tournament. You don't want to miss it. We will see you there. Ballpark at America First Square tomorrow. What a weekend. Rumors ran wild. The BYU athletic director, Brian Santiago, was getting fired to the point a school communications official went on a message board to squash it. What is going on? Greg, Cougar Board is their preferred method of communication these days.
That's not true.
Cougar Board going mainstream.
That's not true.
Just for one weekend.
It's something that they must have felt the need to do, to address that. And I guess you don't put out a press release on a rumor. That doesn't make any sense either. Although going to a message board is unusual. So it's like the rock and hard place thing, I guess, to the point where someone felt a need. And I'm wondering, did it come from on high? That's the thing about BYU is you never really know specifically who's making what decisions because you take the situation with Kalani Sitake last December, right? There were assistants who thought they were gone, that they would be taken off to Pennsylvania, right? And that the athletic director was okay with that he would have been fine with if Kalani wanted to go. Let's not throw more money because we've got Jay Hill. And so Jay Hill is an accomplished head coach. He's an accomplished coach. He's an accomplished defensive coordinator. So clearly he would have gotten the job and will be just fine. And that was one line of thinking. But then somebody above the athletic director spot or somebody's comes in and says, nah, we need to keep Coach Sitake, and we know how it played out, right? And was there tension there? Well, some people say there was, and there is. But it's a job where it's not a job where your goal is to please everybody. It just doesn't work that way. Mark Harlan has been under the spotlight for almost immediately, it seems. And he goes on and does what he thinks is right. So you've got that going on, and we've seen that they've changed coaches. People have come and gone now, established people. The women's volleyball coach, the soccer coach is retiring, and you brought up in the break Jeff Judkins. They tried to couch that as a retirement, which was absolute bull feces. He was pushed out. He was forced out. But they don't want to say that because it is the BYU's got the image. They did that with Ken Schmidt. Oh, he retired. No, he didn't.
No.
He was let go.
I think that's, there's similarities and differences between what's going on at Utah and BYU, but ADs often want their own people, and we've seen both the new ADs come in at Utah and BYU and want their own people, and that has led to a lot of contention.
Yeah.
Because people want those jobs. They don't want to be forced out. They don't feel like they've done anything wrong, and yet they're getting moved out. And that leads to a lot of tension. And in a place that is tightly wired, everybody knows everybody, Small Lake City, itsy bitsy, Salt Lake City, all that kind of stuff. word gets around, stories get shared, and it fans the flames and increases the tension.
I can write a book.
Yeah.
About
You can.
It's just,
yeah. I think there might be some differences, but I think that's when you hear the ADs and you hear people talking about the ADs, that's the thing that's in common in these two situations. There have been a lot of staff changes, coaches, not coaches, a lot of other jobs in athletic departments these days.
Right. It's too soon in Brian's tenure to even be thinking about that. He would have had to committed some infraction against the law or honor code or what have you, which I don't think that's right now anything worried about that. But the job, no. If you're going to go through and have this big search because there was a long time or a decent amount of time between the time Tom announced his resignation and the time that they hired it officially, and I know they spoke to several people. People told me they spoke to me. So anyway, the point being that they did their research as far as who they want to hire, and then basically just short time later make a change. That didn't seem likely. But there's tension, but the job is going to have tension. It's not a people-pleasing job. Decisions need to be made. And decisions are going to be made that aren't going to be pleasing. Jeff Judkins was not pleased to be forced out. But he didn't want to go out and start just bashing people. I mean, he was done and was going to ride off in the sunset until he took a job on Robert's staff on the women's team at Utah.
Actions speak louder than words. And the words are limited. Another comparison between Utah and BYU is there are a lot of people who've signed agreements and they get some kind of settlement and then they can't, NDA, non-disclosure agreement, they can't go out and air all the dirty laundry. So you call one of these people and you get, "Hi, DJ," and then after that, you really don't get anything. Like, I can't talk. I don't want to talk about that. I signed something. I'm not talking about that. You get all versions of that. And so you run into the brick wall. But actions speak louder than words. So if someone goes out and takes a job inside the industry or outside the industry, I'm retiring. What are you going to do? I'm going to go get a job. Well, you're not retiring.
Right. Well, yeah, it was told to me by someone, and then the buyout is so sweet, I wish I could tell you. Literally the quote. But by saying it's so sweet, I wish I could tell you, you're telling me.
Yeah.
So, and that will continue to happen because most of the time when changes are made, it's at least to a degree messy. It's just the way it is.
All true, yeah.
And I think Brian had a past that preceded him, obviously, and he's a fiery guy, and he's worked on it, and people know of what it was before, and he's tried to, I don't want to say overcome that, but handle that in a respectful manner. And especially at BYU, because it's they talk about being different, and they love to tell you that they're different. And meanwhile, they're spending millions of dollars to win games, so they're not really different there. And then they've had high-profile cases of players not doing what they're supposed to, so they're not different there. But they strive to be. I'll give them that. I will say the AD job is really different than any AD job that I'm familiar with.
You have way more bosses.
Yeah.
You have way more people with input. You're not reporting to a president or a couple of regents.
No, there's
you're
10
reporting
people.
Yeah.
And those people all want to say. It's like when we worked across the street, there were 100 bosses.
We reported all
and all of them thought they knew a thing about sports radio because they listened and they didn't know what the crap they were talking about. You back me up on that?
We have worked for, I'm going to count how many people we've worked for, and I probably just can't, but over 20. maybe over 30.
And it's not just across the street.
That's why I'm going back further.
Yeah.
And there are a list of them. And I would say at least 10, I would tell you what they know about radio is that they have one in their car.
Or they
That's
managed
what they know.
a country station or whatnot.
That was
not a sports station.
And that was different. There were a handful of people who managed music stations, but sports talk is different than music. It's radio, so there's some overlap, there's some similarities, but then there's a bunch of stuff that's very different.
Yeah.
The talk sphere, news talk, sports talk, kind of their own branches.
And when they got
tree.
into it, there wasn't sports radio full time. And
Yeah.
their neighbor didn't like that I said something negative about the Utes.
Well, this is where sports talk's different than radio. Yeah, but this is where sports talk's different than radio.
Yeah.
I didn't like that opinion. It's a terrible show.
So you got all these people who think they have a say.
In some cases did.
Because
get managed by committees of managers.
Yeah, and it's just, well, I know what I'm doing. No, you don't. You know what you're talking about. You think you know what you're talking about, and those people are dangerous.
And we also work for some people who are really good, and it would be such a it's like a revolving door, and you're going in like you're in the AC in the building in 1 second, and next second you're out on the street and it's 140 degrees.
Yeah.
And then you go through the revolving door and you're back inside and it's cool and 72 again.
And that was what's cool about coming over here is that they had managed talk radio, plus they're a journalism or journalistic entity. So they know how to handle from that perspective too. And I think you got a lot of hands that are involved. And we've heard it, man. We've heard it from BYU people. We need more business people involved, not as many church people.
And as they get more big money, they're getting more people who, keep talking about return on investment. It's like, well, how do you think you got billionaires involved in a program? And 100 millionaires and people have tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how they think.
It needs to be run as an investment and as a business entity because it is. It's a huge business.
And we've got some, it's a huge, expensive business. John says, egomaniacitis. That's the real rumor inside the programs, but a lot of people go to the money. Jacob, funds, concerns. It's all about the cash.
Well, so much of it is these days, and it's always been, but it's obviously even heightened and more increased about the money. How much you're going to spend? How much you're going to spend on football? How much you're going to spend on basketball? How much you're going to spend on the other sports? How do you divvy it all that up? Mm-hmm. And they have friction about
over how
with
it
the
all
basketball
gets divvied
program
up
versus the football program.
Yes.
And they've had it for years.
Before Santiago was the AD, when he was in
Before
assistant.
Kevin Young was the head coach.
Before Kevin Young was the head coach, when Pope was coaching, yes.
Yes. Why were they lavishing contracts upon Mark Pope, who didn't win a tournament game? And Sataki's over here. And then, I wrote about it, and people didn't like it. And they attacked me. I'm fine. I'm still employed here because, well, if you knew who's telling me what they're telling me, you would say, well, of course. But they don't, and it's their school, and it seems like, it's a little bit of a contention. I don't like that, so blame the dude who's writing it. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. I've been in this business friggin' 42 years now.
Kyle says we need an AD that equally values football and basketball. And then Neil says we already have one, and then it turns into a whole back and forth.
Well, yeah.
And that, I think, gets to a big chunk of the issue.
And
Not the only part of the issue.
We've heard complaints that Kevin Young gets more than Kalani. And Brian's a basketball-centered person, which he is. But
And
he's not gonna spite himself for football.
And when that argument gets drawn out, then it's, okay, are you getting more money with fewer players and less of back to the return and less of a return, as opposed to spending more money on the sport that has more coaches, has more players, and has a bigger return?
It demands more money, I think.
Yeah. And
because the return is going to be way more massive.
And there are plenty of people who will lay all those numbers out for you.
Yeah.
And I assume behind the scenes those numbers are being laid out right now.
And how much are they going to spend to acquire talent?
And how much
versus basketball?
How much was promised back in December when the Penn State offer was on the table? And how much of that has been delivered? And I think, although I don't know, at what rate and what timeliness has it been delivered? Oh, we got you that money after I needed it. Now, they had a pretty good offseason as far as returning players and keeping coaches. There's certainly other schools where we can find other stories. Just read those around the country. Schools get gutted, get dinged, lose a handful. I mean, it's a whole spectrum of results. And BYU came out in a pretty good spot on that, as they will tell you, and they did tell us in some of the interviews.
Well, you talk to Kelly Poppinga, and he talks about at least when he left in 2015 versus where it is now, it's a night and day.
Yeah.
So there's no question that they have increased that. And the coordinator positions are now being paid in the seven figures. And that was unheard of. They did that. Jay Hill got a lot of money to come to be the coordinator at BYU, and I think the return on that investment was pretty doggone good.
Maria says, totally false. Meanwhile, you got other people posting, Scott, he's not well liked, and smoke, well, there's usually going to be fire.
Yeah, well, he's not well liked. So what? Does that mean he's not doing a good job?
Well, that comes back to all these coaching changes that are being made. Are they going to perform? Are they going to have what they need to perform? Are all the resources going to go to two sports that generate most of the cash? I mean, I think we've gotten to a point where football generates the vast majority of the cash, and then men's basketball generates pretty much the rest of it. You can get plenty of people to tell you none of the other sports are making money. It's just a question of how much are they losing.
You can look at the public schools, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Occasionally, some other sports, if you can break even,
that's a big deal.
That is a big deal. Absolutely.
That's a big deal. And usually there's only one sport on a campus can do it. A lot of schools will have a third sport. Connecticut's really good at women's basketball. Texas has had a bunch of awesome baseball teams.
Red Rocks at Utah.
Red Rocks at Utah.
Got, most campuses, there's a third sport.
If they can break even.
And then that's the thing. They win in that sport, and then they try to break even.
And that's why I'd
sport.
say BYU women's soccer is probably the third sport.
A lot of places.
And they're having to change.
Baseball, because they can get several thousand to their games most of the time, and the weather's decent that time of year.
Yeah.
Our area, it's hit and miss.
Oklahoma might be doing it with women's softball.
They've
been winning like crazy there.
They have been.
And the national championships are actually in state.
And drive up the street, literally.
Yeah.
I've made that drive.
Out of kid.
I'm not so concerned about whether he's liked or not. What are you trying to do? You trying to be a people pleaser, or you trying to get the department to move ahead while keeping and they have to keep the standards. At least the standards are very, very different and high, and you've got to keep them as close to 100% as you can, knowing full well you're going to fail every time.
Jordan, just too many honor code violations. The school has a bad rep. Go Utes.
I don't think the school has a bad rep. I don't think that at all.
That's a pot shot being taken.
Oh, wow. He says go Utes, but he actually here on his Facebook page went to Utah State. Look at you masquerading, honey.
Well, that's even worse. I have less respect for him. If you go to another school and spend 4 or 5 years on that campus, and then you claim allegiance to a school that you never took one freaking class from, you're a piece of crap in my mind, and I ain't naming names.
But on camera, he's pointing at me.
I'm not. I'm just, my fingers are out there.
Go Gaucho Tex.
Yeah, get out of town.
Gauchos.
No, I mean that. Get out of town.
Gaucho.
See, I am true blue. Or in this instance,
I've lived in Utah too long. I don't know what to tell you.
Maroon and gold. Nothing
really
gets in the way.
Except for NAU and Grand Canyon.
Because I went there.
Yeah. But you just said nothing gets in the way. So something does get in the way because you went there.
Because I have such love in my heart that I could love multiples equally.
So go Sun Lumberjack Devils?
What was the first part?
Sun Lumberjack Devils Lopes? Like, what are we going with here?
Dodger Fillbacks.
Yeah, and you two have never moved around. It's not my problem.
Hey, go Wolverines and go Cougars in my world.
I moved around. That's why I root for San Diego State football and UCSB. The Gauchos play the Aztecs in basketball. I root for the Gauchos. It's hands down. But they don't because San Diego State's scared of us.
Yeah. You're
DJ and PK, it's 97.5.
Don't make no sense.
97.5 KSL Sports Zone.
3, 2, 1. This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeComb.
From top to bottom, this is the most talented team the Kalani Sitake's ever had at BYU. And that includes his first year when he had Taysom Hill and Jamal Williams. This is as good of a complete team. Now, I know there's some question marks at wide receiver. Totally get that. But I also look at it from the depth. They've got it. The quality, the high-end players, they've got it. I just think this team is absolutely loaded, and we're going to see it on display.
And the questions will get answered quickly. The receivers that you choose have to go out on the field, and they have to run their routes and catch balls, and they catch balls and make plays. You'll start to get to know them better. They'll become more than just a name on a page. And then on Utah's side, nationally, both teams ranked in the top 25. BYU considered a contender, and Utah a dark horse. You guys are in the conversation. Now it's just go do it.
Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Strong play of the weekend.
Running over at first for Rengifo and Austin Hayes. Welcome to San Diego. You gotta be kidding. Just got a little bit longer. You're putting in a former All-Star.
There's the Chevy Strong play of the game. Designated for assignment by the White Sox. Austin Hayes gets picked up by the Padres, and he homers in his first at bat, and they beat the Astros 7-2. So, goes from leading the division over in the American League to fighting for a wild card in the National League. He makes the Chevy Strong play of the game. Noah, today, this afternoon, Jake and Ben will call for it, and that home run, you can win fabulous prizes.
Do you know if the playoffs started today, which they don't? Obviously, there's still 6 weeks to go in the season, some huge games to be played, that the White Sox would have a first-round bye and the Dodgers would not.
Yeah, all right. The American League has really taken a beating from the National League, so their win totals are marginal at best. White Sox 5 games over 500.
Sure, but it's still a phenomenal
bye.
Story. With all the sucking that has
they were
preceded
terrible.
them.
They were
a laughing stock.
Yeah, they were in the amazing Mets territory. You're going to lose 100+. And
yeah, and now being 5 games over, granted, that is not a lot.
That is what
still.
In the National League, the Padres are 5 over, and they're on the outside looking in, as you say, with 6 weeks to go, and it's a game behind the Diamondbacks and the Phils, but nonetheless on the outside looking in. And meanwhile, the White Sox get a bye. Now, they don't have the second best record in the league, but the 3 best records are all in the American League East, so one division winner, and the other 2 take a wild card. So White Sox, hey, I don't have to be faster than the Bear. I just have to be faster than you. And in this case, you is the Astros, the Rangers, and the Tigers.
Yeah, and I think that stuff is cyclical.
The American League was up for a long time.
Well, the Astros had sucked 10 years ago, and then, you can say they're cheating and all. That was what was amazing to me. I went and saw the White Sox. I went on a baseball trip a couple weeks back, and so the White Sox are playing at home to the Astros, and the vitriol when Altuve came to bat. Now, we're several years removed, but it was strong.
Doesn't that go back to what you always said about Pete Rose, though? If he just apologized after you say, hey, I made a mess of that. Mistakes were made. I blew it. Something like that. People are like, all right, they've admitted I'm going to quit kicking them when they're down. Who was the Yankee pitcher who did that, who was so beloved?
Andy Pettitte.
Andy Pettitte, yes. Andy Pettitte did it. He didn't take a fraction of the heat that Sammy Sosa and Barry Bonds and Pete Rose took. 2 steroids, 1 gambling there. But he got out in front of it and just said, yeah, I made a mess of that. I blew it. And people are like, all right, Andy's a good guy.
Right, but he wasn't winning 25 games either.
He was not dominant. He was good. He was good, but he was more B+ than A+.
A starting rotation guy.
Yeah.
But not your ace.
No. He was more
but solid.
guy 2 or 3.
Solid, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, he got playoff starts, so he wasn't guy 5.
Oh, no.
Dropped.
He was good. He was good. And, he said, about trying to recuperate and recover and all that stuff. And the whole thing with the steroids is different than this, though.
It is. But meanwhile, you got a little guy who's a home run hitter, and they've got the whole incident with him. Don't take she went and changed the shirt.
Yeah, I don't think he's a big-time home run hitter. But he was MVPs and whatnot.
He hit enough home runs, and they were timely, so there's that. High profile. late game homers.
There's things that you can point to.
But he never
allowed them to, and they beat the Dodgers and all that. And so you're winning a World Series.
And he never owned it.
Well, I don't think Pettit was throwing no-hitters to win World Series.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
And Pettit is probably thinking, well, I mean, the line of thing is, well, he's facing guys who are doing the same thing. So it kind of washes out a little bit. And he didn't win the World Series individually. He didn't break sacred records, which baseball holds because of its 100-plus year existence that other leagues don't hold.
Sosa and Bonds with the 60 home run seasons, obviously.
Yeah,
and Bonds with the 73. So.
Right. And yes, I don't know on the Pete Rose thing if he would have been conciliatory and admitted what was so obvious to everyone. They had just mounds of evidence.
I think Houston is obvious, and they won. There have been stories and allegations that, like, well, as many as 7 teams were doing it. It didn't get proven. It didn't go public. And did they win the World Series?
Yes, but Altuve wasn't the only guy where they got signals. But yet, all these years later, the crowd in Comiskey,
a lot of the other
whatever they're
players
calling it, just went. But still,
have moved on.
I understand that, but they didn't. But when they didn't move on,
but he still got that whole shirt incident. And
all right, don't rip my shirt. Yeah. I mean, my gosh.
So people think he's guilty.
I understand.
Good enough
I believe he is.
He's good enough that he's still playing and he's there, so the opportunity's there to boo him. And as much as people love the sports and the people who played it are way into every little detail, right? The stances, shooting form, whatever it is. You know, where your hands are if you're an offensive lineman, you get into that. A lot of people are there for the drama, and a lot of people are there for the beefs. They do roar when the manager comes out and screams. The WNBA players are firing off on each other, and people getting way into that. I don't even know how many teams in the league they could name. I know some of the people arguing about this. You're like, could you name 5 teams in the league? I won't even ask you to name all the teams in the league, or tell me how many teams in the league. Could you name 5? I'm not sure you could. But everybody's got an opinion on the dramas people fire off on each other. And in baseball, there's some of the drama.
Sure, but there's still guys. The Diamondbacks picked up a guy, Kepler, who had to sit out, and he won't be eligible for the postseason. Fernando Tatis, no one's going nuts when he comes up to bat.
Yep.
But Altuve is still taking crap. I find that interesting. I'm not saying it's not deserved.
Yep.
I find it interesting.
I think your point
caught me a little off guard.
Yeah, and I can see that, but I think you go back to your point about, well, Andy Pettit wasn't pitching a no-hitter to win the World Series. The Padres haven't even been to a World Series. I mean, it's not that Tatis isn't a high-profile player. He is, and he's got the dad's name and all that, and he's flashy. I mean, that guy hits a home run.
Hit a bomb last night. I was watching it.
And he celebrates going down to first base line. Bob Gibson would have broken his ribs.
That's a new day.
It is a new day, and he's right at the forefront of it. I mean, he plays the game with a lot of joy, and the fans in San Diego clearly love that. Fans in another city might hate it, obviously.
But I don't think he gets the grief.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. Does anyone get as much or more grief than Altuve gets?
For that,
because it's funny you mentioned that.
No.
I just read a thing about that they're still catching heat. Now, what you saw wasn't a one-off.
I know it couldn't have been. Not the White Sox aren't unique. Their fans are like your other fan base.
All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's a busy weekend for the middle of August when nothing's going on, PK. You had a million stories. You kept throwing them up there. We've talked about Don Nelson passing away, basketball Hall of Famer, legend, basketball lifer. We talked about Brian Santiago and BYU going to a message board, a communications official to squash the rumors about Santiago's future or lack of future at BYU. And you also put this up, and this got reaction. Veteran broadcaster Tim Brando has come on our show plenty of times, making predictions for the final playoff poll. What's it going to look like? And he put BYU on the outside again. And again, not by much. He ranks them 14th.
Yeah.
Timmy B's top 15. So how accurate do you think Brando will be? I looked at the teams in front of him, and there's a couple that raised some eyes right away. He's got a couple schools with coaching changes.
You
Which
raise eyes or you raise eyebrows?
Well, I raise my eyes too.
Well, they have to go together.
They do. They're linked. The eyebrows go further, though. He's got Ole Miss at 4, and he's got Penn State at 10, and they both obviously have new coaches. Now, Indiana, it's always the go-to for any outlier, any crazy thing that happens. You know, Signetti got to the playoff his first year, so not saying you can't, especially since Penn State had that expectation and Ole Miss was there. So it's not totally out of left field. Nonetheless, it raises some eyebrows. He's got a lot of the usual suspects. He did put UNLV 12.
That was a shocker.
And then
UNLV?
Yes. Well, any G5 that high is a shocker, right? And then he's got LSU at 13.
But not Boise, UNLV.
Which is another school with a brand new coach. Now, granted, a lot of money and a coach who just
Ole Miss
built
is
a good
sort of
run.
new, not entirely.
Yeah.
But
so there's a lot of maybes.
I think the thing that I took in Brando, I think, is an insider, but it's a prediction, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the statement that I took, rather than who's where and whatnot, is that only one team for the Big 12.
Yep,
that's the thing that jumped out at me.
He's got Tech at 7 and BYU at 14. He only does 15 teams. He doesn't have.
And
Utah.
I listened driving in the College Station, Cannell, and I forget the other guy's name, but I know him. He's an old linebacker for Oklahoma who does broadcasting.
Bosworth.
No.
I'm just kidding. Every time.
No, this guy's a little more level-headed here. If you said his name, I would know it. I listen, flick around in the mornings. Well, this morning they had a Red Raider insider. Mm-hmm. So it's Texas Tech. And all his comments, when they would ask him questions, his responses were basically geared to how are they going to fare in the playoff. Nothing about the regular season. I always have the 10-2 on the wheel, but I wanted to flip them off.
Well, in the 12-gamer,
Hockey is all get out.
In the 12-gamer, they don't play BYU or Utah. And I guess if you run the table, you could lose the conference and title game and still get in at 12-1, I would think.
Yeah, would two teams get in, though? I mean, and all his responses were geared to how Texas Tech is going to do in the postseason, in the playoff, not the postseason, the playoff, because it's just naturally assumed
that they're going to do it.
And you got that kind of money and all that, so I guess, and they did it last year. They steamrolled BYU and only lost one game, and they can say, oh, their quarterback was out that game, and he was. But Hammond's supposed to be ready for the first game, blah, blah, blah. We'll see how it goes. But I think it would be a blow if it's just another one-bid league again.
Yeah. But this is a version of what we talked about for years with the Pac-12. It's a blow if they don't get a team in the 4-teamer this year. And
but this is worse. When you only have 4 teams, that's another story.
0 for 4 is worse than 1 for 12. Discuss.
I think it is. That's because you knew that the other leagues that were going to get at least 2, if not 3, or all 4.
That was the 5th league out of 5, and this is the 4th league out of 4. And so either way, it feels lousy, and you want it to change.
Yeah, but to think that James Madison and Tulane have more playoff appearances than BYU and Utah is right up there, saying that if the playoffs started today, the White Sox would have a bye and the Dodgers would.
Timmy B does have Notre Dame at number 3, so there's an opportunity for BYU to go on the field and change perceptions.
That's a gigantic opportunity.
Yep.
Nationally, playoff-wise, that's probably the biggest opportunity they have because they do not play Texas Tech.
Yeah, I would drop probably. It is. I mean, the next biggest game would be BYU and Utah.
I'm assuming Notre Dame does what they're supposed to do. That's why it's a probably. The quarterback could get hurt or they could be in trouble.
They could unravel the way Penn State did.
I don't think that's going to happen. But that's why I have to go with probably because I don't know what the season is going to look like yet. Although we anticipate Notre Dame being very good, if not literally undefeated when they come in here on October 17th. So yeah, it's a logical assumption there. As I look at BYU's schedule, I think that's 1 and Utah is 2.
And they haven't been rewarded for beating Utah in the past, so why would they be rewarded for beating Utah this year?
I think what they need is the Sun Devils to be really good. They need the Sun Devils. It would greatly help their case if the Sun Devils were good and somehow went into
Texas
College
A&M.
Station and won that ball game.
Yeah.
That you need your conference brethren to do well. That will help you as long as you beat them.
That's the next best game on the schedule, and then there's a handful of games the league is supposed
TCU,
to win,
we'll see.
and they better win. The TCU North Carolina game?
No, I could argue that TCU is a better team than ASU.
Oh, okay.
But we'll see how it plays out. Maybe not.
But if TCU and
TCU's
ASU,
away.
if they're really good, then that could set
Same
BYU
thing with
up.
Arizona. Yeah. And Utah needs Houston to be really good because you have to have marquee wins.
Yeah. And Utah and BYU both want Houston to beat Texas Tech.
Of course they do.
Everybody will be rooting for whoever's playing Texas Tech.
I got to admit,
every
listening
week.
to that guy this morning,
It irritates
go
you.
Cougars.
baby.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
confusing having two Cougars in the same league.
Yeah. Well,
such a
Go
combination.
Cougs and go Cougars.
Our Cougs, their Cougars. I think that the conference really needs each other to be really good and have some super teams. And I know it's counterintuitive to root for BYU to beat Notre Dame, but if they do and then you turn around and beat them, that's what it's going to take. You want to have that opportunity to get that at-large bid. And I think part of the deal with BYU tripping all over themselves at the Cowboy Stadium last year is everybody knew Tech was in and BYU was playing for their playoff lives. And that just adds pressure. And you can act like, well, they blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, they're human beings, man. A 5-foot putt with your buddies versus a 5-foot putt to win a tournament is a major difference. It's just a fact. And so with that in mind, you'd like to know that, hey, you're playing for seeding when you get to Texas in December. And I think the only way to do that is to have your team beat really good teams, which means the other teams in the conference they all need to go 3-0.
48-0 for the Big 12 in non-conference play. Not going to happen, but that's what you need.
Yeah, you do. That's a good starting point because there are 2 or 3 nice games in there. BYU and the Devils having 2 of them.
The Notre Dame and Texas A&M are the biggest.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said for sweeping the next 8 to 10 games against power teams.
I think there are. And then maybe one of those teams beats a big dog in the SEC.
Yeah. And maybe one of those teams takes off and ends up being really good. It doesn't look like in North Carolina or Arkansas or Auburn. But nonetheless, you need to go 3-0 in those games.
Right. Well,
Baylor's got to beat Auburn. Utah's
rather
gotta beat
than
Arkansas.
them taking off, is them sucking but beating you. That's the worst case scenario.
Terrible. Yeah, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
2-10 Arkansas gets a win. 5-win
and then they're no
Auburn gets a
good
win.
in the SEC.
Yeah.
That's
no
a
good.
major blow.
Yeah. You lost to our 8th or 10th or 14th place team.
Right. We cannot have that as a Big 12 entity to get.
So TCU must beat North Carolina.
I think they should. Yes.
Would Iowa State over Iowa be the third best one? I'm trying to think what's the next best game after BYU and Texas A&M.
I'd have to go double check every single one of them.
Yeah.
And then you need Iowa to be good. And Iowa, it's a tough task in the Big Ten to be in the upper level. They are stacked at the top.
Kansas, Missouri would be another. Missouri might be pretty good. We'll see if they can win 8 or 9 or 10 games.
Yeah, they've with that what's it, Drinkwitz or Drinkwater, whatever his name is, Eli. They've seemed like they've rebounded a little bit, and they're decent. But yeah, you simply need that, and I think it would be a major blow. Now, I mean, you could say, well, is it a really major blow? The committee or subcommittees meeting today, this very day, on playoff expansion, and if it gets to 16, or I've even heard now maybe 20, 24. The compromise being 20. I still think it matters because what has to happen when that playoff is expanded, that the Big 12 has momentum in terms of number of teams, and then the next logical step is success in that playoff. You can't. The Devils showed well against Texas. Texas Tech bombed against Oregon. They sucked. Can't have that.
So at 20 teams, can you get 3 in, maybe 4?
Yeah, and you've got to go in with momentum where the mindset is, well, yeah, we got to include them because look what they've done when they've gotten the bids. Yeah. Hey, the human element, I've been saying with the NCAA tournament for decades, this is the reality of it. You cannot eliminate the human element, which a lot of it is perception, which is why the Big Ten and SEC are going to get 5, 6 teams, depending on how big the thing is. And you want to be right there. You can't, if the SEC and the Big Ten are getting 12 teams in, half of them, you can't just get 2.
At what point does the SEC's lack of success catch up with them?
Never.
2 and 8.
Not in my lifetime, and I'm as old as crap. I don't even know if I'm going to be alive Sunday.
2 and 8. That's a 49er coordinator. You can't mix that.
Well, you got a couple Irish people there, man. We think alike.
The SEC's 2 and 8 against the other power leagues the last 3 years. At some point, that's got to catch up with them.
I don't see it. Who's
But
catching?
to your point, if Auburn goes out and beats Baylor, then they'll just go, see? There aren't that many SEC Big 12 games.
I think reps
Arkansas, Utah's
are
one.
hard to build, and you can argue harder to destroy, if destroy is the right word.
It is the right word. I think
Maybe
it's actually exactly the right word because a rep, you can be down for a decade or 2. Miami would be a great example of that. Alabama before Saban would be a great example of that. And as soon as you get good again, they're back.
It's restored.
Yeah, it's restored like that.
We've seen that with BYU. The isolation of independence, they were off the radar. But now they've won double-digit games and all that. Seems like they're back. National brand. I saw Jay Drew had a story in the D News about Colorado State talking about how that when they go over there, that's going to be the biggest opponent they've had in their stadium because it's a national brand. And all the folks over there in Fort Collins, they all remember BYU. Obviously they do, right? So I think you're right. You can have that gap, but once that gap is closed, it's like what you had before comes back much easier.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Very quickly.
I think we're seeing it a little bit with Boise. They had a real good run, slipped a little bit, and they kept going through coaches with guys taking off. Well, now I think they've reestablished it, and we think, oh, yeah, Boise, boom, favorite.
Heavy favorite in the Pac-12 this year.
Yeah.
Got a lot of first-place votes.
Right.
I knew I was forgetting another Big 12 game. The reason I forgot it is because I don't think that team has any chance. Oklahoma State's playing Oregon. I knew there was another mega opponent out there.
Oh, man, you're just downgrading Menstermaker, whatever his name is, Eric Morris, and the mean green of Red Raiderville, or Green Raiderville, whatever they were over there in North Texas.
The mean green.
Just mangling that.
Yeah, I'll get to it.
You will eventually.
The North Texas Mean Green, the Texas Tech Red Raiders, and some of the Oklahoma State Cowboys are also in the mix here.
Yeah. And I'll be rooting for how about them Cowboys?
Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean,
Jim and Jarrah.
I'll go to my grave. It'll be hard for me to root for the money green of the Oregon Ducks. It's a good thing their color is green because that's how they got to be where they were.
Hey-o.
Right? Literal green.
DJ PK, when we come back, everything you missed in the first 3.5 hours of this show. A lot of football. We'll get to that next. NFL and college. If you missed it, we had Jason Cole on back at 7:30. Covered the NFL for a long time. Gave us his early season thoughts, how teams are stacking up. We'll get to that. Stay with us.
3, 2, 1. This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeCoe.
Joining us now, it is the head coach of the Utah State Aggies, Bronco Mendenhall.
I know you're so process-driven and there's a plan to every part of the season, but is this your favorite part?
There's an excitement that comes to the start of every season for sure. I would have to say, just in terms of full transparency, I really like the off-season. I like the molding, forming, crafting, forging the next team through the weight workouts and through the runs and through the early morning workouts and through spring practice. I think that's my favorite era. Nothing takes away from the season, or can it take the place of the season, and the excitement going into today, certainly at a really high level. I think foundationally that my favorite part is the formation of the team, and now this part where you get to see kind of the fruition of the formation of your program.
Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 KSL Sports Zone. Time to get you up to speed on everything you missed in this show. Brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 1-855-TRAJAN1 or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. We had Jason Cole, longtime NFL writer and analyst on the show. A little preseason look at the NFL. You brought up with him the reemergence of running backs as a force in the NFL. Guys are getting money. Guys are getting drafted higher. Guys are putting up higher yardage totals, and he attributed to the cyclical nature. Everybody was throwing the ball. You needed smaller, faster guys, and you spread out all over the field and match up with all these receivers, which makes it easier for the power run game. So he thought it was kind of cyclical in nature, and agreed that it was happening. He was not big on the Kansas City Chiefs' cyclical nature. Maybe they're back as a wild card team, but the roster just isn't good enough in his mind.
It's extremely hard to do what the Patriots did, and that's one of the things that was amazing is that they had some turnover. Now, obviously, Brady and Belichick were still there, and they still found different ways and creative ways to cheat. Congratulations for them. Do whatever it takes. And they were able to continue winning in a duration, or as they say, a dynasty in the NFL. It is. I think it's the most impressive thing if it happens. Basketball, you understand. Okay, if you hit
a generational
good situation
player,
and they're 23 to 26, they're going to be around. And in basketball,
that's how
one or two dudes make a huge difference.
And that's how the Warriors did it, and they're the most recent example.
Right, exactly. And you understand that. Football, with guys coming and going, and all the little white receivers that ran through the Patriots to continue that degree of excellence is awesome. Not that I'm not a big, and I don't root for or against the Patriots, but I have to acknowledge greatness, and to see that is really impressive. And so it does look like the Chiefs are on the way down, which is natural. And if I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm thinking, so what?
Every year there are teams that improve a lot. He identified the Giants with the coaching change and some young skill players maybe coming to their own, and Washington with just the chance to be healthy. They really weren't last year. And so can they get back to where they were 2 years ago?
Yeah, but then they got their guard. We just said their tackle dude. Just that
may not happen.
Laramie dude, he's out.
Laramie Tunsil, yeah.
And wondering, what is Daniels? Was it lightning in a bottle? Or was it sustained greatness about to happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's too early to see. And Darnold isn't a great quarterback, but who says you have to be a great quarterback? And maybe he is on the verge of a breakthrough. Maybe it just took so many years and he got it going on now because he was an extremely high pick, which meant that NFL folks thought that he was supposed to be good. We assign these guys labels, and then it sticks with them. I mean, John Beck talked about that, about how he was put in a situation with Miami which wasn't good, and then you get labeled this or that, and it's hard for those quarterbacks to shake those things, and you're a journeyman, you're a bust, you're this, you're that. And maybe for Darnold, it just took the right situation combined with the experience in the league. I'm not willing to just cast him off that he's not good. I want to see what he can do. In fact, when Cole said that, my antenna went up. Oh, I'm going to root for Sam Darnold now.
Is it a matter of you got to go to a decent franchise, that you just go to some of these places?
I think you got to be everything.
Darnold was...
obviously, the franchise has got to be good for you to be good.
Jets in Carolina, and the Jets have been down forever. And he talked about that in the whole
Sure, but I don't think
rebuild.
Carolina has been down forever. I don't think they're down right now.
They have not
They're
been.
okay.
They're mediocre. And there's two teams that could go worst to first where it wouldn't be a big deal because they were in last place in their division, but they were only 2 games out of first.
And let's see what Bryce Young can do over there in Carolina. You know, he's still a young guy.
Carolina went 8-9, won the tiebreaker, 3-way tie with Tampa Bay and Atlanta. New Orleans was 2 games back at 6-11. New Orleans could go worst to first. It wouldn't be a huge jump. Detroit 9-8, tied with Minnesota for last place, but only 2 games behind the Bears. So again, not a huge jump if either one of them did it. Minnesota was weird because they were out of it. And then they won 5 at the end of the year when they were 4-8, and they were never really in the playoff hunt. But they finished 9-8. So has Minnesota found something? What's the deal there?
Well, getting to the playoffs is an accomplishment, but who's serious about getting to the bowl? Who do we view? And I don't know yet. It's obvious way early. Who do I think? I mean, we can go with the usuals, but
we can.
I think Seattle was somewhat of a surprise. And so, who is bowl worthy?
Seattle was not, to me, a surprise as a playoff team, but they were as the champion. They were really good 2 years ago and then missed the playoffs. I think they were 10, maybe even 11 win team.
But we're talking about winning the bowl.
People are not betting on Darnold and that offense to have enough.
Right.
The usual suspect is really one usual suspect in my mind: Rams, and Rams. But if you want to widen it out,
this is the NFL, man.
If you want to widen it out, well,
between now and January, might as well be 10 years.
Bears, Eagles, we can go some usual suspects
I think the Bears
here.
are on the come.
Bills, usual suspect. Yeah, I'd agree.
I look for Indiana to make a serious run at the bowl.
Indiana?
Yeah, aren't they moving to
the
Indiana?
Bears?
Yeah.
Okay, well, they're Soldier Field this year.
The Hammond, Indiana Bears.
Oh, we call the Jets and Giants in New York.
The New Jersey.
They're not changing the
They don't
Chicago
even practice
Bears.
over there.
I know, that's all in New Jersey.
Jeez.
But a lot of the people with big money who fill their luxury suites come from there. That's it.
Well, they come from all over.
They do, but it's the biggest money's in Manhattan. And you're right, there's money in Connecticut.
And most of those people, they don't live there. They live either in Connecticut or Jersey. That's like, why do we call it a foul pole? If it hits it, it's a home run. Don't make no sense.
Should be the fair pole.
I've been to the Jets practice facility, and it's like 10 minutes from where I grew up, and that ain't New York.
That'd be awesome if they worked out in Central Park. That'd be cool. Let's go over to Central Park and watch the Jets work out.
So I think the Bears, when they move, or if they move, they should be called the Indiana Bears.
That'd be good. Get right on that.
Like the Kentucky airport, or the Cincinnati airport's in Kentucky?
It is.
Yeah. So come on.
The Arlington Cowboys? Let's go.
Nah, we understand that.
The Inglewood Rams.
No one called them the Inglewood Lakers.
The West Palm Beach Dolphins. No, I don't think they're in West Palm, actually. That'd be funny. Jason Cole, wherever you get your interviews you want, there was a lot of NFL talk there. We went through a lot of stuff with him. So wherever you get your podcasts, go grab it. KSL Sports, KSL Sports app, YouTube, wherever. Steve Bartle came on, talked Ute offense. We focused on the offense the whole time. What's it going to look like? How much are you going to throw it? How good is that O-line going to be?
I think
Parker
the offense
gonna
was
run it down their throat?
Very much so dominant at times last year. But can and will it take the next step? Because if it can and does, then they're right there. But I don't know. It's not a complete mystery because the baseline is good, but we're talking about being better than the baseline.
I get it, but there's still question marks you can't know until you see a game, and and you're really not even going to know in the first game.
No, you're not. You're not going to know anything.
You can only know the negative. You know, if nothing
there won't
works,
be any negative.
If nothing works in the first game, then it's red flags everywhere. But we all anticipate it will work in the first game.
Well, Kyle has often said that you got to get into early October before you know what you have here, and so that'll be that. I don't think they'll be pushed that much in the non-conference. Next year, I think they got Miami and Vegas, so looking forward. That's That's something to behold.
Yeah.
And bringing Miami all the way to Vegas.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Very unusual.
Right.
And yet it's happening.
I'll probably watch that game.
Probably. Pretty good odds.
Never know what's going to happen. I anticipate being there at that game.
You may not be a live Sunday, though, as you pointed out. So I guess you got to have your qualifiers.
Well, I'm going forward as if I'll be here a week from today.
Okay. Got a good solid plan for the next week.
But you never know.
Get 8 to 10 days out. You got to leave your options open. Don Nelson, second winningest coach in NBA history, passed away at the age of 86 over the weekend. His family made the announcement yesterday. He won 5 NBA titles as a player. He was a Hall of Fame inductee, a longtime coach. First with the Bucks. I was not aware, just because of my age. He retired, went straight into assistant coaching, and Larry Costello got fired after 15 games as a head coach. And then away he went. When I knew him, he was just the Bucks head coach, and then I'd subsequently read about all the other stuff. But Bucks head coach, Warriors head coach. I had forgotten how briefly he was the Knicks head coach. Less than 1 season. And that's how Jeff Van Gundy got the job. It's a very short tenure, and he actually had a winning record. It's not like it was a disaster, but whatever, it blew up. And then he went on to Dallas.
Well, when a famous sports person dies like that, and he's 86, so obviously advanced age, I go back and look on all the stuff and see what they did as a player, how they got to where they were, if they end up being coaching. Like, I remember when John Havlicek died, I went back and looked at his stats. Like, he's like 28, 9, and 8. That guy was a big-time player.
Big-time player.
Stan Musial died. I went back and looked at his stats. Exact number of hits on the road as at home. Big-time hitter. And then I went to the Cardinal Stadium, and they got a bunch of statues, and they got him down like the third baseline on the outside of the stadium, but then around home plate area, one, Stan Musial. Obviously.
Similar to the Giants. Because
exactly.
Willie's home plate, but they've got other stuff outside the ballpark.
Yes, and Willie needs to be front and center because he's the freaking greatest ball player of all time. I don't care what they say about Ohtani.
Willie and Stan need to get their own spot at the park.
And so I did look up Don Nelson's stuff, and he talked about how he didn't know what he was going to do when he got done. He went to Iowa, and he had 3 options, and the other 2 he thought, I'll try this coaching gig and see how it works. Smart move. And then he was a longtime coach, innovator, promoter of the league. Nelly. Everybody, I mean, if I had $1 for every time the jurist in my 10 years of covering him as a beat guy talked about Nelly, I'd have your money.
A lot of respect, he says, ignoring the last comment. A lot of respect for Nelly and the fact that he got big guys shooting threes, big guys handling the ball. What skill do you have? I'm not going to just automatically put you in a spot.
Yes.
Did not win a championship as a coach. Never had the mega players of that era, but took good players and had good teams and good playoff runs. And coached for a long, long time. Ballpark, what did it have to be like 30 years, right?
Yeah, and then his son got into the foreign stuff. Now everyone's into the foreign stuff. And that's how they made that trade to get Nowitzki, who was a legendary player, Hall of Famer, obviously, beloved in Dallas. And if you're beloved in Dallas and you didn't play for the Cowboys, you're beloved.
That's a good point right there. They soak up a lot of oxygen in that area.
Yes. About 98% of it.
Yeah. Memphis Grizzlies forward Brandon Clark died from the effects of heroin and cocaine. The L.A. County Medical Examiner's Office announced over the weekend he was found dead May 11th. That is a tragedy, PK, gone way, way too young. It seemed like there used to be a lot more of this associated with sports. There seems to be a lot less, but a reminder here that it's not completely out of the game.
Yeah, it's actually shocking because you're right. When I was growing up back east, I knew kids. My mother's boss that they drove every day into Harlem. They worked. He was a manager of the bookstore on the campus of City College of New York, and my mother was an employee there. And his son, Ricky Minaco, I can remember it. I'm like 12 years old, and he's 16, 17, and he doesn't get up. And they go in there, and he's dead. And that was like, that's all I needed to know. You don't ever do that, man. That was such a powerful lesson to me, and I remember it vividly. And you're right, that was far more common, but it seemed like we got past that. And then to read this stuff, kid who grew up in the Phoenix area, went to San Jose, and then transferred over to Gonzaga to be done, and was in the NBA. It's just like, wow, that still goes on? That's awful.
In the NFL, there was plenty of stories here. Teddy Bridgewater retiring caught everybody's eye. That's a guy who was awesome in college, had a pretty good pro career, left pretty early. I mean, quarterbacks can play into their late 30s, especially the backups. And he went and coached high school football and did a great job with his high school team down there in Florida, but then came back to the NFL. And now he has stepped away again, kind of late, but hey, one person's decision is somebody else's opportunity, right? Open up another roster spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder if he's really gone or if he'll be back again. Well, I mean, he's really gone. I wonder if he's gone forever.
No, I know what you meant. I know what you meant. Yeah. Permanently gone.
Permanently, yeah. He'd been away for a couple days, so there's something going on in his personal life and decided he needed to step away. Roger Craig, former 49er running back, just sent into the Hall of Fame. Well-earned, a little late in my mind, but there he is. But as part of that, he announced vascular dementia. Doctors believe in part from concussions he sustained during 11 years in the NFL as a running back. And it'll be interesting to see. I was just talking with my wife about this. They made all these safety changes, and we can see the toll it's taking on guys from the 80s and 90s. He wasn't a big national figure, but a guy who was popular in San Diego, who went into the media, linebacker Billy Ray Smith from Arkansas. And he had a long career. He was in the NFL like a decade. He just passed away, effects of dementia. Junior Seau, that was a massive story, really sad, when he committed suicide and went back to CTE. And there have been tons of examples from the 80s and 90s. Now, these last 5, 10, 15 years, it seems like, you know, you can go back a little further, it's been harder to get back into the game after you, quote-unquote, had your bell rung. You just used to go back in the game. Now it's a concussion. You're out. There's a protocol. It's a year or two. They're developing helmets more. Is that really going to make a difference when we get to 2040, 2050, 2060 and look back at these guys? Or is this, hey, you tried, but the nature of the sport, it really didn't make any difference at all? And I'm curious how that's going to play out. I don't think anybody can really answer that question right now.
I think in the way it will play out is the players are more educated and know of the possibility, so they step aside.
Shorter careers for the guys who
yes,
feel
and
like
we've
they're starting
seen
to have
that
issues.
More often. That's where I think
we just read a headline last
headway
week
can be made.
Yeah,
of a youngster who could have continued to play, but saying no, I've got the pension, I've played 5 years, whatever it is, I'm going to step aside because they've become educated on the possibilities. The public has become educated. If not educated, then certainly a higher level of awareness of the potential in your 40s and 50s and 60s, as you just said with the Smith guy. And so with that in mind, I think that's where a difference can be made. There won't be as much reluctance to step aside for the benefit of your health. Yeah. I mean, it was shocking when Barry Sanders did what he did.
Mm-hmm.
But who's to say that wasn't a brilliant decision?
We talked a little baseball this morning. Something I just saw here on social media, though. This is the 31st anniversary of a Bizarro game. Do you remember it?
The 31st anniversary? We don't discuss 31st. Now, if it would have been 30th, yes. But 31st, no.
On this date in 1995, Major League Baseball's most recent forfeited game occurred. Cardinals, Dodgers. Dodger fans didn't like calls. It was ball day. They started throwing their souvenir baseballs out on the field, and the umpires just waved it off and took off, and that was it. They left. We're out.
And see, now you would just go to replay, and then everybody would take their ball and go home.
Thank you for that. All right, DJ and PK, we'll take a break. When we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time for your feedback. What do you have to say about today's show? Rumors ran wild. The BYU AD, Brian Santiago, was getting fired to the point a school communications official went on a message board to squash it. What is going on? Wild Turkey says going on Cougar board to squash it is probably the worst thing you could do.
Why's that?
I don't know. Maybe thought it gave it more life. Other than that, I can't think what the negative would be. I guess that'd be the argument.
Well, there's so much that's out there on a message board, and pretty much everybody has an anonymous name, so nobody knows who
people
are and whatnot. So it is unusual, but, I guess I don't know. I think John McBride is his name. I don't know if he was directed to do it or he just felt the need to do it on his own. But it's unusual.
Vic at One True Aggie says the fact it was BYU rumors should have ended any concern.
BYU rumor, boom, false.
That's it. Max says he's no homo. Santiago's style is always going to attract criticism and make him vulnerable to sabotage attempts. Brian wasn't coordinated clearly and convincingly enough to make him invulnerable to the kinds of RF attacks Watergate made famous. It's an RF attack. He puts RF in quotation marks. RF.
Rumor false.
Okay.
I don't know.
Bodacious says, football season's closed when wild rumors are going around. Average Homeboy says it's desperate Utah fans.
Is it? What are they desperate about?
They want controversy. They want trouble down at the Y.
I mean, sure. But Brian is so brand new at the job that his tenure right now is to be determined.
PC Darrell, you're a BYU lover.
Who?
I assume me because they put it on Twitter.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, it's documented evidence of you and your son at a Utah spring game in Utah gear, as the story goes.
As the story goes is a critical part there.
But it's documented. I've seen the documentary.
Mark, and you stir the pot by saying, what's going on?
Well, I wrote it, so, but that something's got to be going on. I mean, it's an unusual thing. When I first heard about it, I just blew it off. But then I thought, when I first heard about it, there was no statement. Then the statement was there, and then I literally sat on it for like 6-7 hours and thought, do we want to discuss this? Rather than discussing the rumor, which I don't like to discuss, discuss the fact that the PR person employed by the university goes on the message board and that's not a rumor. You see, I know you know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying there.
Right.
And
That's
normally,
the story.
There have been a million rumors. There have been more than a million rumors. And routinely, the communications people will ignore them. But occasionally, rumors get addressed. Typically, it's coaches' jobs. A rumor the coach is taking a job or a rumor a coach is going to let go. They typically don't like to address rumors because it gives them more life.
Right.
And then you don't get anything else done.
It's all,
yes, you're chasing your tail. You don't get anything else done.
Right.
But sometimes it gets so loud, you feel compelled to do it. And
this
so
is one of those cases.
Here's one of those times.
So we're not really discussing the rumor. We're discussing the reaction to the rumor by a BYU employee in the communications department.
And it's unusual this time of year. Typically, this would be happening halfway or 2/3 of the way through a season when, things aren't going well or things are going great. The Urban Meyer to Florida or Notre Dame rumors started before the Utes finished their perfect regular season.
Especially when the man is barely into his tenure.
That makes it even more unusual. Yeah.
And these jobs, the reality is, it's not quite like a coach where you're hired to be fired, but having an AD have to step aside is not that big of a deal in terms of news. It's news, but not unusual news.
DJ and PK, we're out of time. Scotty G and the coach Tim Lacombe are next right here on The Zone.